Chapter 161, The Key Point. I've figured out a way, Atlana suddenly declared, raising her head with determination. I can succeed and become Queen of Atlantis. Huh? Three faces stared at her in stunned silence, especially Mara. The thought that flashed through her mind was chaotic. Mother and daughter. Mother actually treats me. This is too messy, right? Duke was equally bewildered. Could it be that Atlana, trapped in the center of the earth for many years, had changed her orientation and now liked Mara? Mara quickly regained her composure. Mother, do you want to become the Queen of Atlantis and then cancel this marriage agreement? Yes, of course. You can also challenge me, Atlana said, turning to look at Duke. No, Arthur snapped. After finally reuniting, no one could hurt his mother. The agreement in Atlantis is sacred. Once you cancel the agreement, Mother, you will be expelled again, Mara said sadly. This had become a new rule since the King of Atlantis decided to exile himself after sinking Atlantis to the bottom of the sea. Anyone who made a mistake and shamed Atlantis would be exiled or even sacrificed, depending on the severity of the mistake. The agreement is sacred. Once it is cancelled, exile is certain, even if it is not as serious as Atlana's escape from marriage. I'd like to see who dares, Arthur shouted defiantly. I have a question. Who will execute the banishment order? Duke suddenly interjected, interrupting the three of them. I don't quite understand. Isn't your king the highest authority? Of course, but at critical moments, the Council of Elders has this power, Atlana explained. Then defeat them. Wouldn't that solve the problem? Aren't you Atlantis at war with the Saltwater tribe? By the way, you could kill the council. I'd like to see who will exile you then, Duke sneered. Yes, let's do it, Arthur said excitedly. He didn't care about the council. If they dared to banish his mother, they would become his sworn enemies. That's the case, but I will still step down when the time comes. Arthur, Atlana turned to look at her son. Huh? Arthur instinctively felt uneasy. I hope that by then you will be able to lead Atlantis. Mother, Arthur struggled. He didn't want to be a king. Don't refuse. This is your responsibility. Let's talk about it when the time comes. Let's talk about it, Arthur said evasively, turning his head away. There was no way around it. His mother was the ultimate authority in his world. Atlana sighed, but said nothing more. Forget it. No matter what, you have to prove yourself in this war. Come with me. She led the three of them towards the water curtain cave. Duke knew they were going to retrieve the Neptune trident. He looked disdainful. So what if Aquaman got the trident? Would he surpass Superman after obtaining it? No. In Duke's opinion, while Aquaman's strength would indeed increase, there would still be a considerable gap. The Neptune trident could control and summon storms, produce tsunamis, lightning, or ice and snow, and could even use water to teleport anywhere. In the lore, Atlana's trident was indestructible, unlike the tridents of Aquaman's mother or Orm's father, which could be broken. Additionally, the trident's main power was its ability to control all the creatures in the ocean, which ultimately helped Aquaman defeat Orm. It was the trick of using the trident as a golden cudgel, not any other super ability, that made it powerful. In essence, Atlana's trident was stronger than Orm's father's trident in terms of basic attributes. It was like comparing an orange weapon to a purple outfit. The basic lethality was 100 versus 80, and Atlana's trident also had the forging attribute, indestructible. Therefore, Duke felt that even with the trident, Aquaman would not be an opponent of Wonder Woman in terms of strength, and would remain in the second echelon of the Justice League, a warrior with magical props. At the beginning, Orm sacrificed me to the trench race, but I survived. Like you, I fought my way to this point, Atlana said, her voice filled with resolve. Mara and Arthur felt a pang of embarrassment. They didn't fight at all and were directly sent over. You have been here alone for 10 years? Mara asked, surprised. Although it seemed there was no need to worry about food and drink here, staying alone for 10 years without anyone to talk to or communicate with would drive anyone crazy. Incredible. Yes, Atlana nodded, then walked towards Arthur. Forgive me for letting this happen. Duke turned his head and stared at Mara. He couldn't bear this kind of emotional and bitter scene. Why are you staring at me? Mara asked. You look good, Duke replied. Mara rolled her eyes. Boring. I think there's something to chat about. Look, Soon my title of fiancé will be confirmed. By then, you will be my woman, and we will have time to chat all night and all day. Just chatting, Mara glanced at him playfully. Of course, you can also sing to me, Duke teased. Shut up, Mara snapped. Meanwhile, Atlana continued her emotional conversation with Arthur. He'll still walk to the end of that pier, every morning, every day, waiting for you. Why didn't you come back? Duke whispered to Mara. I know the answer. Can you not speak? Mara rolled her eyes again. Yes, but I'll let you talk all night, Duke said with a grin. Mara was speechless. Ah, men, always thinking about one thing. Because the entrance that brought you here won't let me go back. The trident is the only way to return, but Karasan protects it. The legendary monster is real, and it's behind the waterfall, Atlana explained with her eyes closed. Duke continued to tease Mara in a low voice. It's just a Cthulhu. Mara was too angry to respond. What is Cthulhu anyway? Duke has a portal. You can leave directly, Arthur said, glancing at the waterfall and pointing. Atlana was surprised. You didn't come from the entrance? No, we saw it, but we came here directly through Duke's portal, Arthur explained. Portal? Atlana was puzzled. It's just a door that can go anywhere, Duke said, feeling exasperated by the need to explain. No, Arthur, you need strength, and the Trident of Atlantis is your best proof, Atlana insisted. We can fight together, Mara said, standing up suddenly. Duke pulled her back. Come back here. What are you doing? Why are you messing around? Mara was annoyed. That Cthulhu, well, I'm sorry. Karasan's creature must have some restrictions. You forgot what the image of Atlana said? Duke reminded her. If you want my power, you must prove your worth? Mara replied. No, it's this sentence. If it is in the hands of the real heir, it will unite the power of all the land and sea kingdoms. After speaking, Duke shrugged. Although I think the second half of the sentence is complete nonsense, the first part, true successor, is the key point. Atlana nodded. Yes, it will only allow the real king to pass. Are you afraid? End of this chapter. Chapter 162. Isn't this the head of corn? Neptune did not deny it. Yes. After all, it is a legendary creature, Charon, and human power cannot match it. It's nothing. It's just a horseshoe crab. Just eat it. In front of me, there is nothing that cannot be eaten, Duke interjected. In his opinion, the head of the god Makram is actually a horseshoe crab from the Ordovician period. Chelicidae subphylum, Legstomia, plateped limulus. It is said that the largest can grow to 4 meters. Karasan is just a big horseshoe crab with octopus tentacles added to it. Overall, it's still edible. Mira rolled her eyes and didn't want to speak. Atlana was also a little speechless. Duke seemed to come to disrupt the situation. Very well, you are ready, Atlana nodded and said with relief. Atlantis has always had a king, and now it needs more than that. But what is stronger than a king? Arthur asked, wondering if he should become an elder of the council. A hero. The king fights for himself, and you fight for everyone, Atlana said. Arthur's eyes were full of fighting spirit. I have to add a word here. Shut up, Mira snapped angrily. Shh. Duke curled his lips in a low voice. He waited until Arthur entered the water curtain cave before leaning on Mira's leg and said, I found that you Westerners have a kind of hero complex. Hey, personal doctrine is not good. And the hero is too tired, and the hero dies early. I am more willing to be a hero than a hero. Mira was so angry that she wanted to shake Duke off, but no matter how she raised her legs, Duke was still stuck to her like strong glue. Finally, she ignored him. Atlana was somewhat interested. What's the difference between a hero and a hero? There is no such word as xiaoxiong in English, and the simple translation is a person with great ambition. Heroes and heroes are actually similar. It is said that heroes come out of troubled times. In fact, there are more heroes in troubled times. Generally speaking, heroes are the ones who are famous forever, but heroes are often the ones who win the world. Because heroes are not only ambitious, but also ruthless. The purpose is unscrupulous, but the hero always has the so-called benevolence of a woman and loses the righteousness for the sake of small righteousness. Duke shook his head. Simply put, a hero cannot make mistakes. Even if he makes a small mistake, he is no longer a hero. That's why I say that being a hero is exhausting. Yu Wumu is a hero. If he hadn't been summoned as a class teacher, then he would have become a hero. In our East, there is a saying that describes it like this: I would rather the world bear me than I defeat the world. I am a hero. I would rather I betray the world than the world bear me. Heroes. Both women fell into deep thought. Okay, don't think about it anymore. Aren't you afraid of his death? Duke glanced at Atlana, then pointed to the water curtain cave. I believe in my son. That's a good I believe. But don't worry, he won't die in my opinion. I heard that he can talk to marine life. Duke leaned on Mira's thigh and smiled. Soon, accompanied by the surging BGM of Suited and Booted, Sea King officially debuted with aggressive steps. Before Mira could see clearly, a pair of hands stretched out in front of her eyes, blocking her view. What are you doing? Mira shook her head vigorously. Needless to say, she knew who did it. I'm afraid you won't be able to get it out of your eyes, so you just don't look at it, Duke said. Hey, are you scared too? Mira smiled. It was rare for Duke to be scared. It's not that I'm scared, but that you Western women like heroes too much. But I filtered it, and it's okay. Isn't this just a head of corn? Duke joked, and then let go. Corn? Mira grew up in the sea, so she doesn't know much about land, so she doesn't know what corn is. But Atlana had lived on the ground, so she naturally knew about it. It's okay if you don't mention it, but when you do, I couldn't help but laugh when I mentioned it. When I saw the King of Atlantis before, I didn't feel this way. But now, the situation with Arthur is quite amusing. Is there anyone else who could be compared to a piece of corn? Arthur has a deep connection with corn. Initially, I thought my appearance would be quite thrilling, but Duke's interruption made it all the more hilarious. Even Arthur himself felt like a head of corn. Duke held up an ear of corn. This is a type of food. Peel off the outer husk, and the kernels inside are edible. Breaking the corn only made the comparison more apt. Mara compared Arthur to the corn and then burst out laughing. Arthur was even more exasperated. Come on, Arthur, let's see how much your strength has grown, Duke challenged. Swish, a sudden flash appeared in front of Arthur, making him feel as if he was facing an enemy. He quickly blocked it with his trident. Just then, Duke's fist came flying. Punch! Arthur was blasted back into the water curtain cave. Mara, Atlanta. After a while, Arthur returned, looking horrified. Atlanta was equally shocked because the trident in Arthur's hand was bent at a 160-degree angle. Mara was also stunned. The Neptune trident they had placed their hopes on was bent just like that? Duke was a bit taken aback. Doesn't this thing have the indestructible attribute? You're too powerful, Arthur said, feeling conflicted. Although he didn't feel the trident's power diminish, carrying a bent trident would make him a laughingstock. Let me take a look, Duke said, taking the trident casually. He instantly felt the trident's resistance, as if a surge of energy was erupting from within like a nuclear explosion. Hey, still not behaving? Calm down. Duke's power overwhelmed the trident. With a swift motion, he straightened the trident back to its original form. I'll give it back to you, Duke said, clapping his hands with a look of disdain. It's not fun at all, far worse than mine. Arthur, feeling frustrated, thought, of course, it's not as good as yours. Your terrifying rune sword can bring back the dead from thousands of years ago. Who can compare? Hey, by the way, can Crumb eat that? Duke asked. Arthur was confused. I think the quality of the meat isn't very good. Forget it, let's go eat crabs. Saltwater crabs are huge, Duke suggested. Mara, all you think about is food, right? At this time, the Atlantis army led by Orm had officially approached the saltwater tribes. End of this chapter. Chapter 163. I can eat this crab for a year, sucking, halazi rushing. The three people next to him looked speechless. Are you really here to eat crabs? Wow, that crab. I can eat it for a month. No, I can eat it for a year, Duke said, ignoring the incredulous looks from Mara, Atlanta, and Arthur. Hermit crabs, orchid crabs, bread crabs, wow, and giant king crabs. Those claws, hundreds of meters long, would take more than a year to eat. He quickly wiped his mouth. So, what's next? Arthur asked. Let's go and find Orm, Duke replied. He manifested a great white shark, a 20-meter-long beast, and carried Arthur towards the enemy line. According to the plan, King Orm would be handed over to his brother Arthur. You need to show your strength so that they won't have any objections to overturning the marriage union, Atlanta said. The plan was for Arthur to stir up the fray, defeat Orm, show his power, and prove that he is the rightful king of Atlantis. But after defeating Orm, Arthur would not sit on the throne of Atlantis. Instead, Atlana would take over as a temporary substitute. Then, they would overthrow the previous marriage agreement with the Zeeble Kingdom. This required Duke to use force to deter both Atlantis and the Zeeble Kingdom. Otherwise, Atlantis' fate would be exile once again. After Duke deterred the two countries, he would also need to intimidate the council elders of Atlantis. Coupled with Arthur wielding the trident of King Atlanta, they would have to consider the consequences before exiling Atlanta. Don't worry, Duke smiled. A huge black shadow began to gather. Moments later, Mara and Atlanta were dumbfounded. An ancient beast had been revived. Atlanta felt it most deeply. That tyrannical breath, that chilling aura, she had never felt so palpitated, not even when facing Kara Sen. A 200-meter giant beast materialized. If there were ancient biology enthusiasts present, they would undoubtedly be shocked and exclaim, Dunkleosteus! That's right. It was a type of prehistoric fish that lived during the Devonian era, about 360 to 415 million years ago, with a body length of about 8 to 10 meters and a weight of up to 4 tons. It was an exoskeletonized placoderm. Dunkleosteus, a member of the Dinichthyeidae family, gave off an unusually ferocious impression, with a thick and hard exoskeleton covering its head and neck. Although it was a carnivorous fish, it had no teeth. Instead, its snout was equipped with a carapace growth that acted like a guillotine, exceptionally sharp, capable of cutting, biting, and crushing anything. Its massive size meant it could slice a shark in half with one bite. And now, what Duke manifested was an armored Dunkleosteus, with 100% of its body covered in an exoskeleton. Moreover, its length of 200 meters was 20 times that of the original creature. Go, get on, Duke said, pulling Mara and Atlanta onto the back of the armored Dunkleosteus, where a transparent shield protected them. Atlanta was so shocked that she didn't know what to say. This time, Cthulhu was not allowed to follow, because Duke had long wanted to take its role. Cthulhu or not, the Dunkleosteus was far more shocking. One bite at a time, it couldn't be killed. Cthulhu might look menacing, but after being hit by tens of thousands of lasers for a few rounds, it would sink. The ferocious body of the Dunkleosteus slammed into the battle formation between the two armies. With two sharp guillotines on its upper and lower jaws, it could take down a ship with one bite. Its massive size, although not the largest among the Atlantis ships, the largest mothership being at least 1,000 meters long, was the hardest and strongest. If the guillotine jaws were too slow, it would ram with its extremely powerful body. Hitting and sinking a ship was like child's play. After swimming back and forth a few times, the enemy formation was completely disrupted. The scene was chaotic. What? Ah! Don't come any closer. Damn it. What is this thing? What? The warriors of Atlantis were all dumbfounded. They watched helplessly as a massive beast rampaged through their ranks, feeling utterly powerless. Fire! Om commanded, ordering the fleet to launch an intense barrage at the creature. Are you kidding me? Duke muttered in annoyance. Your son can't handle it, so why don't you rush up and fight, Om? It was Arthur who spoke next. Aim at that mothership. Charge! Wait! Atlanta shouted. That 1,000-meter-long mothership was the pinnacle of Atlantis's technology. If it were destroyed, it would set them back decades. But it was too late. The beast, controlled by Duke, charged through the artillery fire and slammed into the mothership. The impact was immense, flipping the ship over. The creature's massive jaws opened wide, and with a few bites, the lights of the once proud mothership flickered out as it sank to the bottom of the sea. The fleet's laser fire was useless against the armored beast. No! Om cried out in anguish. This was the pinnacle of Atlantis's technological achievements. Enraged, he turned his crocodile mount sharply and charged at Duke. Even laser weapons don't work. What do you think your suicide charge will accomplish? Duke scoffed. My dear brother, here is your opponent, Arthur said, finally arriving on his great white shark and intercepting Orm. Stupid brother, are you here to die? Then I will oblige. Orm pulled the reins sharply, turning his crocodile mount to dive at the great white shark. Bang! A violent collision ensued. The crocodile was no match for the great white shark and was knocked into the sea. Meanwhile, Duke, still controlling the armored beast, continued his rampage. "That's enough. You've shown your strength. You can stop now," Atlanta shouted, distressed. Those were her people. But to end this war, sacrifices had to be made. There are too many casualties. The fighting must stop immediately. The slaughter cannot continue, Mara also shouted. "All right," Duke agreed, halting his assault. His goal wasn't to annihilate Atlantis, and he didn't want to become their mortal enemy. "I'm going to find my father and have him withdraw," Mara said. "Then I'll take you there. I also want to meet this old father-in-law," Duke replied. He had already spotted Nereus's seahorse mount and turned the armored beast towards Zeebel's army, charging forward. Nereus, terrified, raced away on his seahorse. "Why are you running?" Duke asked, exasperated. "What do you think?" Mara retorted, giving Duke a pointed look. "You're driving a massive monster straight at him. Of course he's going to run." "Father," Nereus, who was fleeing for his life, suddenly froze. It seemed to be his daughter's voice. End of this chapter. Chapter 164, The Ice Age. Turning around suddenly, he realized it was indeed his daughter. Although it startled him, the enormous monster was almost upon him, so he fled in a hurry. It wasn't that he wanted to run. The seahorse mount was running by itself, terrified, and bolted away. Despite being the king of the seahorses, it was still trembling in fear. "Duke, you need to make it disappear," Mara said to Duke, exasperated. She didn't want to see her father humiliated repeatedly, even though she didn't particularly like him. "That won't work. I still need to keep them intimidated," Duke replied, noticing that the old father-in-law had finally managed to control the Seahorse King, even though it had already run several kilometers away. "You go there," he said, manifesting a 20-meter killer whale for Mara and letting her swim over with Atlanta. As for him, he continued to ride the armored Deng's fish, scaring the children and playing around. Although the giant beast no longer attacked them, the Atlantis warriors still fled in fright. "Mara," Nereus said, looking at the scene before him with a complicated expression. He was shocked because he also saw Atlanta behind her. "Stand back and let them pass." "Father, he has taken the trident. I know you think this war is necessary, but by our most sacred code, Arthur is king," Mara said. According to tradition, Arthur had indeed become the king of Atlantis. This could not be ignored. Only if Arthur refused after defeating Orm could Atlanta become the new king or acting king, and then cancel the agreement with the Zeebel kingdom. If you ignore this now, then the Atlantis you guard is as good as dead. Then that half-breed is your king. "Long time no see, Princess Atlanta," Nereus said, nodding towards Atlanta. She then pointed to the frightening armored Deng's fish and asked her daughter, "What is that?" Mara turned her head and glanced. "That is the strong man from the surface world, the people from the surface world you want to fight. How about it, father? Do you still have this idea now?" Nereus was silent. What a joke. A single strong man from the surface world had turned them around. If they really went up, wouldn't they be completely finished? Duke wanted to laugh. He couldn't understand what was wrong with these people from the sea. Were they all brain dead? A single Superman would stop them at the shoreline. Arthur and Orm fought all the way to the surface of the sea. The battle in the sea was over, and with that huge monster disrupting the situation, the battle couldn't continue. Moreover, according to tradition, Arthur had taken the Neptune trident and become the new king. There were no more fights. With a tug on the reins, the Seahorse King rushed across the sea. Duke also jumped out of the sea, riding on the armored Deng's fish. "This battle is too boring. Let me add some excitement to it." Ice Age. Stepping on the surface of the sea, he touched the water with one hand. The bitter frosty air exploded violently in all directions. In an instant, without even having time to blink, the sea for tens of miles was frozen.
"Zeebel, Murloc Prince."
Mara and Atlanta were also shocked again and again. What powerful control this must be. The frozen sea stretched as far as the eye could see. As for the Atlanteans who had surfaced, they were all trapped in the ice. Instead of being frozen into ice sculptures, the ice bypassed them, leaving them a piece of seawater to live in. Even so, they were still shivering from the cold. The two people who were fighting fiercely also slipped on their feet and fell on the ice with a bang. Who are you?" Orm turned his head to look. "Duke, That's Mara's genuine fiancé. I was supposed to challenge you as a pirate, but forget it, you're not qualified yet, Duke said, landing lightly on the ice. The armored Deng's fish gradually turned into snowflakes, floated into the sky, and disappeared little by little. So far, everyone was in shock. The huge beast that Hia had tormented them wasn't real. What kind of magical ability was this? Especially Nereus, who felt as awkward, uncomfortable, and disgusted as if he had eaten something foul. This kid was Mara's fiancé? He knew about this. He had heard of it from Atlana before she was sacrificed. But in the past 18 years, this so-called fiancé had never shown up. To better cooperate, he had married Masaharu Atlantis. He never expected this, but now it had appeared with a violent momentum that crushed everything. This matter seemed to be troublesome. Nereus, being a hero and a scheming old man, was well aware of what might happen next. Was also extremely shocked. He realized he was not qualified to challenge the skill of freezing the sea alone. He couldn't help but be surprised in his heart. Where did the mixed race find such foreign aid? Go on, let me see the ability of the so-called King of Atlantis, Duke said contemptuously. A soldier can be killed, but not humiliated. Orm fought Arthur again, but unfortunately he made frequent mistakes. The ice on the sea was already slippery, and with the heavy rain, it became even more treacherous. If one wasn't careful, they would fall on the ice. Losing face was a trivial matter. If the opponent seized the opportunity to fight back, it would be bad luck. Fortunately, Arthur was born on land. He had been playing on the ice since he was a child and had already developed his skills. His father was a lighthouse keeper, and Dahi Bay was in the northeast corner of the United States, with the state of Maine bordering Canada. Winters were cold, and the sea froze for months. During this time, he would skate on the sea, becoming very familiar and experienced with it. On the other hand, rarely went to frozen places in the sea. Furthermore, the nature of the ice in the sea was not the same as that on the sea surface, leading to frequent mistakes. After a series of offensives, Arthur used his original skill, the big golden cudgel, vertical sweep, to smash Orm's trident. Orm's combat power dropped instantly. Go! Kill me! No! At this moment it was Atlana's turn to intervene. She walked onto the ice slowly, approaching her son. Mother? Arthur said, surprised. My son, Atlana replied gently. I don't understand. I thought it was Arthur who saved me. You support him? Yes, you are both my children, and my love for you is the same, but you have been misled. Your father taught you that there are two worlds, but he was wrong. The land and the sea are one. The battle was over, and Orm was taken down. And then, it was time to show off their acting skills. People of Atlantis, today begins with bloodshed. End of this chapter. Chapter 165, press the F key. The original plot was announced by Mara, but it is inappropriate now. Atlana solemnly announced the birth of a new king, Arthur. Of course, Arthur refused, using the excuse, the world is so big, I want to see it. Everyone. After repeated pushes, Arthur delayed becoming the new Aquaman for a year. During this year, Atlana temporarily replaced the Queen of Atlantis, giving Arthur time to explore the world. Then, in the name of the Queen, she announced the annulment of the political marriage with Zebel. Although Atlana was a temporary substitute, Nereus sensed that this was the best solution and agreed. If he disagreed, he would have to face Duke's soldiers. After the annulment, according to the previous agreement, Duke remained Mara's fiancé. In fact, it was possible to cancel the political marriage with Arthur sitting as King of the Sea, but there was a problem. This marriage was established by King Nereus and King Owak being Orm's father, and thus Arthur's father. Arthur could not cancel it. To cancel it, he would have to duel with Nereus. A duel was naturally out of the question. If it were a real duel, Duke would challenge Nereus, which would be pointless. Unlike Atlana, who was of the same generation as Nereus. Actually, I still want to beat your dad up, Duke whispered. Mara didn't want to talk. Hey Arthur, any thoughts on what's next? Duke asked. What else can I think? The world is so big, I want to see it, Arthur said, laughing to himself. Well, let's go first then. We. Mara suddenly felt something was wrong. Of course, you and me. Without waiting for Mara's response, Duke opened a portal and returned to the scorching white desert of Afghanistan. You. Of course, the fiancé and fiancée are going to be together. Come on, Let's wait until you get rid of that Diana of yours, Mara sarcastically said with a blank stare. Duke was embarrassed. This was a topic that could not be avoided. Mara didn't have any particular objections to being a couple. In fact, she was used to it. There were several women around her father, but Diana was different. First, she had never seen a man, and then she went to live in the human world for 100 years. Her thinking gradually changed from polygamy to monogamy. Polygamy was mainly seen in ancient times. Orientals seem to be polygamous, but times are progressing, women's rights are rising, and this is gradually dying out. Thinking of the scene where the two might fight, Duke felt a little guilty. But it was not impossible to live in peace. After Diana married the Queen of the Sea, didn't she get along very happily with one wife and one concubine, although in the end, Diana chopped Mara off. However, after the Flash corrected the timeline, the two became good friends again. Hey, I don't want to think about it. Let's settle down now that we're here. Come here. Your eldest grandson is coming out? Mara glanced around, only to find that there was a familiar mountainous area around her. Wasn't it the place where Duke's eldest grandson was arrested? Well, it looks like it's about to come out, and it's time for a wonderful moment. Duke opened the mirror space and walked in with Mara. Oh, this is a bulky armor? Mara curled her lips in disdain. The technology in the human world is too poor, less than 1/10 of our Atlantis. Duke smiled and didn't speak. The human world was indeed inferior to Atlantis. But when Tony returned, he would upgrade the MK armor. Ethan was helping Tony put on the armor. Okay, tell me the route again. Go 41 steps forward, 16 steps to the door, take the fork on the right, and turn right after 33 steps. At this moment, the bandit leader realized something was wrong. They don't seem to have enough time, Mara observed. Do you need to help them? She asked. No, since my eldest grandson has come this far, he can handle it, Duke replied confidently. Duke shook his head. He already said he wants to go out by himself, so I can't interfere too much. Just then, 2 hapless bandits detonated the explosives. Oh, their defenses are gone, Mira observed, puzzled. Why did you plant the bomb? Actually, it was blocked with a door bolt to prevent them from coming in, to buy some time. First, the door bolt can be opened from the outside. Second, even if it can be blocked from the inside, the opponent can still use explosives to blow it open. Therefore, it's better to press the explosives and catch them off guard. Duke explained. Mira nodded. That's true. Start the power system, Duke instructed. Press the F key, Mira responded. Okay, I see the progress bar, Duke said, watching the screen. 10%, 13%, 15%. At that moment, the sound of running footsteps echoed through the cave. The tense moment had arrived, and it was time to concentrate fully. They're coming, Mira warned. They're coming. Ethan muttered nervously, wiping his sweat while tightening the screws. Come out with me when I'm done, okay? Tony yelled. There's not enough time. I'll buy you some time, Ethan replied, turning around and rushing out. He picked up a gun from the ground and started firing wildly. Bang, bang, bang! Follow the plan! Follow the plan! Ethan, Tony shouted. This Ethan is quite courageous, Mira praised. Aren't you going to intervene? Otherwise, your eldest grandson might not be able to escape. Of course, let's go. Duke smiled and chased after Ethan. Mira was right. The iron case alone couldn't stop the elevated submachine gun outside. If it fired all at once, as long as the track was broken, the whole thing would be useless. Tony could only escape by jetting, but it couldn't save Ethan's life at all. If Ethan was rescued by force, the result would be that both of them would die here, and neither of them could escape. Therefore, in the plot design, Ethan had to die no matter what. Where is this guy shooting? Mira said, exasperated by Ethan's erratic firing. Yeah, he's an idiot, but forgive him. Although he has many occupations, being a killer isn't one of them, Duke shrugged. He has never killed anyone, so even if you gave him a gun, he wouldn't dare to shoot at anyone. It's just that he was lucky, and the bullets didn't bounce back when he fired at the top of the cave. I remember there was an unlucky bandit who wanted to blow up Tony's helmet at close range, but the bullet bounced off his head. Ah! Ethan was still running while shooting. At that moment, a hand suddenly stretched out from the air and grabbed his shoulder. Before he could yell in horror, he was pulled into the mirror space. It's you? Ethan looked at the person in front of him in surprise. "It's me. Do you mind putting on a good show?" Duke asked. Finally, the progress bar reached 100%. The cave was instantly pitch black. End of this chapter. Chapter 166. Your grandfather's brother said. Sparks and lightning flashed as Tony finally made it to the door. He saw Ethan lying in a pool of blood, a jade pendant broken in half beside him. The pendant had lost its luster and was now dim. Even this can't save you, Tony thought, recalling how his father had survived under the attack of a shell with the same pendant. Ethan, however, was riddled with bullet holes. "It was my fault, Ethan. If I had known that day would come." Tony's voice trailed off. "Get up, let's go," Tony urged. "For me, you have to stand up and follow our plan." Ethan weakly raised his eyes and said, "Actually, this is my plan, Stark." "Get up, you have to see your family," Tony insisted. "My family is dead. I'm going to see them right now, Stark." Ethan's voice was extremely weak. "Don't worry, I have nothing to worry about." "It was my fault if I," Tony began again. "No, as I said that day, this is my plan." Ethan's breathing grew fainter. Tony forced a smile, his facial muscles twitching. "Thank you for saving my life." "Then cherish it. Don't waste your life." Ethan took his last breath. "Is it really good to do this?" Ethan asked anxiously in the mirror space. "Well, give him some motivation," came the reply. In the flames, Stark soared into the sky. He didn't notice the sea of flames behind him transforming into fire dragons. Roaring, the fire dragons rushed into every cave, burning all the bandits in the mountain, leaving none alive. At an Air Force base in Afghanistan, the sudden appearance of a portal shocked a group of soldiers. Hold on, put down your guns. Do you know who he is? Do you want to die?" James Rhodes yelled, ordering the soldiers to lower their weapons. He wiped sweat from his forehead. "Mr. Duke, what are you doing here?" These soldiers almost caused trouble. This was not someone they could provoke. "I've found Tony. He's in this area," Duke said, manifesting a map and circling an area on it. Why don't you?" Rhodes was puzzled. If Duke had found Tony, why didn't he just bring him back? "Why so many questions?" Duke's expression darkened. "Understood. I'm going to bring him back now," Rhodes replied. "Wait, I'm going too." Ethan raised his hand and shouted. "Who is he?" Rhodes asked. "Tony's benefactor," Duke replied. "Okay, you come too," Rhodes greeted. Duke glanced at Ethan, who nodded, and then opened the portal back to New York. After some searching, they finally found the down-and-out Tony. Hey, Rhodes smiled and hugged Tony. "Will you still ride in your happy Jeep? Come with me next time, okay?" Tony smiled wryly. He would never ride a Jeep again. He had a psychological aversion to it now. After boarding the helicopter, Tony was dumbfounded when he saw a familiar figure. "Ethan, you're not dead? You're still alive?" "Oh, I see, yes." As smart as he was, Tony quickly guessed what had happened. "It's your grandpa," Ethan laughed. "He wasn't injured at all. It was just a dummy that had appeared." Rhodes listened to their conversation, feeling confused. It sounded like they were swearing. Sure enough, Tony's face turned dark. "Damn, I've been tricked. Your grandfather asked me to tell you something. After returning home, go to New York and meet your father. He also said that your father is gearing up and waiting to teach you a lesson for being an unworthy descendant," Ethan said happily. "Anyone who survived death would be very happy." Tony's face darkened even more. As for Rhodes, he couldn't keep up with their train of thought at all. What? Didn't his grandfather die a long time ago, and his father has also been dead for several years? The dead can still gear up? It's not a zombie. Why is my back feeling cold? Hairy, creepy, Tony pouted. He wasn't going. "If you let me go, I will go?" The old man was very strict when he was alive, but after his death, it must be even stricter. Ethan seemed to see it. Tony smiled and said, "Your grandpa said." "Can you stop using that word?" "Okay, your grandpa's brother said." Tony, "He said that if I don't see you within a week, I will personally arrest you, and it won't be as simple as your father training you alone." Tony nearly fainted. "Of course, there's one more thing." Ethan leaned close to Tony's ear and whispered, "Obadiah Stane planned this incident." Tony recoiled, looking at Ethan in shock. The latter shrugged his shoulders. "I didn't say this. It was your grandfather's brother who asked me to convey it to you." Tony frowned deeply. He kept thinking, if something happened to him, who would benefit the most? Obviously, Obadiah Stane. This man, who used to be his father's good friend and a major shareholder of Stark Industries, now seemed like an ambitious individual trying to replace him. Ethan had no reason to lie to him. Moreover, Ethan was also locked in the cave, so he would never know these things. Tony trusted Duke more than his longtime industrial partner, Obadiah Stane. After all, Duke had saved his father twice, and the initial development of the Stark family also had Duke's contribution, and his father's soul was still in Karazhan. Thinking of this, Tony frowned even more. What an Obadiah Stane! Originally, in Iron Man 1, Tony trusted Obadiah Stane extremely and didn't guard against him at all, which gave the big bald head an opportunity. Although Tony is a playboy and a genius obsessed with technology, he is the chairman of Stark Industries and an absolute controlling shareholder. His business ability may not be as good as his father's, but he can still score 80 points. Now that he knew who was behind the scenes, if he couldn't solve it, then he wouldn't be Iron Man. "What's the matter, Tony? You look terrible," Rhodes asked. "It's nothing. If you need help, just call me." Rhodes didn't ask any more questions and patted Tony on the shoulder lightly. He knew that something big must have happened. As a close friend, all he could do was to help Tony as much as possible when needed. "I will," Tony smiled and nodded. Afterwards, the news of Tony's return spread like wildfire throughout the United States. In Karazhan, Howard breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the news report and cursed while drinking. "You bastard! When he comes, let's see how I teach him a lesson." It's time to go home for the new year, so let's wish everyone an early new year. "Well, Abbott, I will go home on the 15th, and I can't code when I get home." In the countryside, my family was very poor and didn't even have long tables and chairs. In rural areas, the dining tables, mats, sofas, and beds are usually gone. I once tried sitting on the bed, leaning against the bedside table, and typing with a notebook, but the result was, my back hurt, my legs got so hot that I couldn't sit still, and I couldn't write at all when I got home. "Abbott, I have a slow hand, and I can only write a 2,000-word sheet in an hour and a half. Plus, there are many things to do during the year. Tentatively, I'll set 2 chapters of 4,000 words, come back on the 29th of the month, resume 3 chapters on February 2nd, and strive to run up to 4 chapters. I hope old and new friends will support. Go ahead and bring it, Ollie." Chapter 167. Want to form X-Force? Hearing the old man's indignant voice, Dr. Erskine laughed heartily. "When he comes, you won't say that." "Humph. No matter what, I have to get him married soon," Howard said angrily. "This is inherited from you." "Don't." Howard almost choked on his own words. He didn't want his son to be like him, marrying and having a baby after half a century. Although he wouldn't die and could still see his grandson born no matter how long it took, it was still displeasing. "What about the boss?" Howard asked. "I don't know. Should I come back?" Since coming to Karazhan, he no longer called Duke uncle, but boss. Why? Because Erskine and Duke used to be of the same generation. Although there was a significant age difference, they were colleagues and friends. When he saw Erskine again after his death, it felt a little strange. Calling him uncle again made him feel like he was a generation shorter, even though he was also Jiangzi when he was alive. Maybe it's different after dying once, right? Anyway, he decided to call him boss instead. There were no waiters in the wish house, just Duke alone, on the edge of Heaven's kitchen. Although it had been away for 2 days, the dark green vines were still very active. There was an envelope at the door, and inside the envelope was the wish list delivered within the past 2 days. "You stay here first, Mara. The wish house is for people to fulfill their wishes, but what's the point?" Mara didn't answer, but looked at the decorations in the hut curiously. The dark green vine gave her a novel sensory enjoyment. This was a novelty she hadn't seen in 18 years. A product created out of boredom, just to pass the time. Some people open barbecue shops, some open coffee shops, bookstores, etc. Why shouldn't I be more high-end? Duke smiled, pointing upstairs. "The room above will be given to you." The wish house had 2 floors above ground and 1 floor underground. The first floor was for the shop, the second floor for living, and the underground floor for future preparations. After making himself a cup of tea, Duke sat on the wicker chair and looked through the wish list, then threw it aside. It's all nonsense. What happened? Mara asked. There are really people whose wish is to become president. This is teasing me, Duke said, exasperated. Looking through it, Mara also smiled. And this one, someone wants to gain 100 pounds overnight. Pfft. Everyone laughed. Really? I've heard of people wanting to lose weight, but wanting to gain weight, and 100 pounds at that. Why doesn't he just go to heaven? Duke remarked. Mara made a general survey, and it was true that most of the wishes were incomprehensible. Hey, here's another letter, but it's not signed. I'm healthy. When Duke took it over, he saw that it was not a letter, but an envelope. The sender's information was not written, only his address as the recipient. How could such a letter be mailed out? But then he remembered this was America, and it seemed plausible. Some private courier and parcel companies would also pick up this kind of stuff. After tearing it open, Duke was stunned. The signature was, Bruce Banner. Isn't this Hulk? The content of the letter was only, help me, I know you can help me. It was such a short sentence that he didn't even write an address. But thinking about it, he must be worried about the address being leaked, and thus worried about being caught by the authorities. Is this person famous? Mara leaned over and asked curiously. Duke turned on the TV. Look. Seeing the video of Hulk destroying the house, Mara couldn't help but pout. This is a monster! Dr. Banner had successfully transformed into Hulk. In 2007, Bruce Banner was baptized by gamma rays, turned into the Hulk, and then fled New York. The video on the TV was from that time. At that time, Duke was fighting Steppenwolf. A run is a year. I don't know where he went. Duke smiled. Bruce Banner probably made a bad decision. Although there was no return address on the letter, the company that sent it could be identified. If his old father-in-law had been determined, he would have found Duke's hiding place long ago. But it seemed the letter had arrived safely. Just as Duke was about to lock on to Bruce Banner's location, a girl peeked in and walked into the room. She was African-American, with a complexion lighter than black, but darker than bronze, which was still acceptable. She appeared to be about 15 or 16 years old. There was something very familiar about her face. Who are you? Duke asked, noticing her curious glances at the room's decor. It feels so magical here, the girl remarked, ignoring his question. Who are you? Duke repeated. You're Mr. Duke, the god of law who defeated Superman, right? She asked excitedly, her eyes practically burning with admiration. Duke liked the title, God of Law. If it had come from a beautiful woman, he might have been more pleased, but this girl, though stylish, didn't quite fit that bill. Who are you? He asked for the third time. Oh, let me introduce myself. My name is Domino. I heard you can help people realize their wishes, so I'm here, she explained. Domino? Are you a mutant? Duke inquired. Yes, she confirmed. And your ability? Luck. Duke pondered for a moment. Was this really Domino? She seemed much younger than the Domino he remembered from Deadpool 2, and she didn't have the afro hairstyle. Mentioning X-Force made him think of Wade. Was Wade still alive? The last time Duke saw Wade was in '73, and he must have been at least 30 years old then. Now, 35 years later, Wade would be around 65. Did he still have cancer? Oh, by the way, have you ever heard of a guy called Deadpool? Duke asked. No, Domino replied without hesitation. Maybe he's not called Deadpool yet. How about this image? Duke conjured an image of a man with a red hood, black eyeshadow, and white eyes, carrying two swords, a talkative king. I'm pretty sure I've never heard of such a person, Domino said, shaking her head. It seemed Wade was cancer-free. Then, your wish? Duke asked. I don't know, Domino admitted. What? Duke was puzzled. I'm not sure why I'm here. I just followed my luck, and it led me here. I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but generally, things go well, Domino explained. Her words sounded oddly familiar to Duke. Well, I happen to be short of a receptionist here. You can think about it, Duke offered. I accept, Domino said immediately. I'll give you $5,000 a month. That works. Just then, there was a quick knock on the door. Oh, it's her again. Miss Domino, you can start your duties now, Duke said, glancing at the door. Hello, beautiful lady. I'm Domino, the receptionist of the Wish Hut. If you have any wishes, you can tell me. When the boss is away, I can help you register. Domino began. No need. Isn't the boss here? When are we going to dig ice? The woman at the door interrupted. Miss Domino, you are very unskilled in your business. I am very unhappy, Duke remarked, glancing at the door. Miss Carter, you really have a sensitive nose. End of this chapter. Chapter 168. I thought it would be Jennifer who stepped in. To my surprise, it was Sharon Carter. Eshield is always around, she said. Spying on me? I asked. Let's just say we're watching each other, Sharon Carter replied with a smile. Give them away another day to relax their nerves. Hopefully, they can hold out for a day. Sharon Carter rolled her eyes. Everyone knew that Paradise Kitchen was Duke's territory. More than half of the people here were Samir's subordinates, which meant they were Duke's subordinates. If you were spying on Duke outside, it wasn't really surveillance. You had already been noticed a long time ago. Since this is the House of Wishes, can you help me realize my wish? She asked. Come back in 3 days. Oh, and wear thicker clothes, Duke chuckled. Thicker? Sharon Carter was puzzled but nodded. All right, see you in 3 days. As she left, the stalkers outside the house also withdrew. Duke had already been aware of their presence. Okay, I'll leave now. Mara, you can stay here for the time being. Oh, and Domino, change your hairstyle. I prefer short hair, Duke said, turning to Domino. Her hair was not yet an afro, but it was heading in that direction. For some reason, black people seemed to have an inexplicable love for afros. Was it the afro making black people, or black people making afros? Mara subconsciously touched her long hair. Oh, honey, I like your long hair, she said. I hope you come back alive, Mara smiled. Duke smiled back and left. He had to communicate with the heroine. A coffee shop in Brooklyn. This was Diana's new job. You came? Diana no longer wore the magic mask and had returned to her original appearance. Pretending to be someone else with a magic mask had started in the 1920s and continued until the end of the apocalypse. Those who knew her from that era had already died, so it didn't matter if she restored her original appearance. You seem to have known for a long time. This isn't your ability, Duke said, smiling as he walked forward and sat next to Diana. This is the age of technology. Diana smiled and took out her mobile phone. On it were some photos of Duke's return, and Mara was in them. Duke was a little dumbfounded, having forgotten about technology. It seems I will have to be more cautious next time. Hey, I'm just kidding. I'm curious, though. Ordinarily, you should be cutting me with a sword. Could it be you don't love me anymore? Duke asked. Do you want me to cut you? Diana asked, turning her head. No. Diana, we've walked together for a century, and I don't want to deceive you. Who is she? Diana sighed. A century of companionship. Mara, Princess of Atlantis. You should know Atlantis? Duke was a little nervous, fearing that Diana would jump up and cut Mara with a sword. After all, Paradise Island had fought Atlantis very early on. Their relationship had its ups and downs. In bad times, they were enemies, fighting each other. In good times, they were allies, fighting together. So you kidnapped an Atlantean princess during this time? Diana asked. Listening to her tone, Duke was relieved. At least Diana didn't see Atlantis as an enemy. But yes, Arthur was half an Atlantean, wasn't he? He could still fight hand in hand. It seemed he was being a little too cautious. Maybe Diana wasn't. Didn't you go to save Howard's son, Tony? Well, it's a twisted story, Duke shrugged. It was in Afghanistan that I met Mara and Arthur. Arthur, Diana frowned. It's a long story. Simply put, it's... Duke began to explain. It took Diana a while to understand. You mean Atlantis was going to attack the land, so you stopped by to settle the chaos in Atlantis. Then they discovered that the ocean needs to be combined with the land to better resolve the conflict between the two races. So they promised you a princess? Diana asked. Correct, Duke confirmed. Diana glanced at him leisurely and said mockingly, Can you fool yourself? Seriously, you can ask Arthur. Atlantis was really going to attack the land. We had a fight in the Atlantic, Duke explained. 4, Duke said, stretching out 4 fingers. I mean the second half of the sentence. Don't lie to me, I still know a little about the Atlantis tradition. Diana stared at him with burning eyes. Okay. Remember 1985? Diana was curious. The time you were awakened and then you brought Jennifer back? Yes, that was the time. I once went to Maine and Dahi Bay. On a stormy night that year, Arthur's father picked up Arthur's mother, Princess Atlanta. Oh, she is the Queen of Atlantis now. She escaped from an arranged marriage and then met Arthur's father. Get to the point. The point is that I saw the future Mera, who is an important figure. So I went to Dahe Bay and never expected to actually see Atlana pregnant. I warned her that Atlantis would attack the surface world in the future and urged her to go back and stop it. She didn't believe me, so I told her that a person named Mera would be born, and she would naturally believe it when the time came. In short, after a series of coincidences, she said that she would give me Mera so that the sea and land could be more integrated. Diana frowned. I'm afraid it's not that simple. You can ask her. This is really the case. And I found a newspaper about us in their home, as well as the latest morning newspaper about Magneto. It reported that the government had designated an island for mutants to live on. What does this have to do with Magneto? Diana was puzzled. Of course it has something to do with it. She saw the future of Atlantis from the mutants and noticed similarities between Owak and Magneto. Owak is Atlana's fiancé who she escaped from. He is advocating an attack on the terrestrial human world, and he is not the only one who thinks so. Isn't this the same as Magneto? She saw Magneto's end, and, in him, saw the potential future of Atlantis. So you mean she has been thinking about you for a long time? I'm afraid so. She has been considering it for a long time. Finding a strong man on the surface to marry and strengthen their influence is undoubtedly beneficial to them, and my appearance can only be said to be a coincidence that contributed to this matter. Of course, if I hadn't appeared, she might have come to me. Or maybe she wouldn't have. Diana seemed to understand and said with a sneer, I'm afraid it's more than that. It's more because you see that Mera is very beautiful. Ahem, Duke scratched his head. I don't deny it, but no matter how beautiful she is, she's not as beautiful as my dear. Is that what you said to her as well? Diana raised her eyebrows. How is it possible? I never said that. I swear, this is the only time. Duke quickly raised 4 fingers again. I do not believe you. Diana sighed in her heart. She already knew that Duke was not a single-minded person. She originally thought that the intermediate would be Jennifer, but she never thought. End of this chapter. Chapter 169. I don't want Master not to recognize me after waking up. Ever since Jennifer made that statement, Diana knew it must have been Jennifer who intervened. When Duke fell asleep, Jennifer was 14 years old. When he woke up, she was 30, almost 40. In fact, Jennifer could have fixed her age after becoming an adult, say at 20 or 24 years old, which would have made her more feminine. After all, at 14, her body had not yet fully matured. Her figure could still develop, her height could increase, her legs could grow longer, and her overall appearance could improve. But Jennifer chose to remain at 14. She said, I don't want Master not to recognize me when he wakes up. Upon hearing this, Diana realized that this disciple had fallen in love with her master and had become her rival in love. But what could she do? This was her apprentice, the girl who called her Master. Was she supposed to cut her down with a sword? The idea of hero saves the beauty is often seen as the best way to capture a girl's heart. Moreover, Jennifer's temperament and appearance, a blend of green apples and peaches, could captivate anyone. If you liked pure, you could find it in her. If you preferred a mature style, she had that too. She was simply irresistible to everyone, from 10 to 80 years old, men and women alike. For a long time, Diana thought Jennifer was the most likely to win Duke's heart. She never expected a brand-new princess from Atlantis to enter the picture. This caught her by surprise. She didn't doubt Duke's feelings because Jennifer hadn't made her move yet. Once she did, Diana believed Duke wouldn't be able to resist for even a second. However, Jennifer seemed to be hesitating. Diana's feelings were complicated. After all, she had been with Jennifer for 20 years, and they had long been considered family. This made the situation super complex. I really swear, this is the only time, Duke continued, holding up 4 fingers. Okay, shut up, Diana snapped. She didn't want to hurt Jennifer. This girl, who was both a family member and a rival in love, made her feel helpless. What if Jennifer got hurt after being rejected? Although she was a druid and could heal physical wounds, inner wounds were not easy to heal. Diana had once thought about letting it go by default. That's why, when she saw Mera appear, She didn't get angry immediately. She was ready for someone to step in, so she wasn't too angry, but she didn't expect it to be someone else. Are you angry? Duke asked cautiously. Diana raised her brows. What do you think? Duke shrank his neck and said with a smile, if you want to get angry, just take it out on me. It doesn't matter how you hit me. After all, if there's any fault, it's mine. You want me to hit you? As long as it calms you down, I can take it. Diana sneered. Can I even shake your tortoise shell? Since you have the ability to show off, then drop your defenses. It wasn't the first time they had fought. After dealing with Steppenwolf, they had a contest, and she no longer had the advantage. That magical and unpredictable power of rules made her feel helpless. Okay, come on. Duke raised his hand, and with a series of clicks, the mirror space opened. I won't defend. Come on, I won't fight back, no matter how hard you hit me. Dear, have you forgotten that I have Wolverine's powers? Even if you cut me, I will heal soon. You. Diana was furious and conjured a long sword, but she couldn't bring herself to strike. Finally, she let it fall to the side in frustration. After all, they had gone through a century hand in hand. How could she hurt him? It's cheaper for you, she muttered. Hey, Duke smiled, moving closer to Diana. If you don't want to see her, I'll send her back to Atlantis first. Scumbag. If you're not happy, I won't let her live in Kent. It's all wrong if you don't see her. Actually, Mara didn't want to live in Karazhan either. She had already told him that. Living in such a situation, you would definitely be quarantined and boycotted. Even if it isn't obvious on the surface, it would certainly be felt in people's hearts. This was their territory, and she didn't want to get entangled in a century-old feud. There was also a sense of dependency that she found uncomfortable. Mara was a strong woman with her own personality and ego. Although she accepted Diana's existence, she didn't see herself as a third party or a concubine. They were equals. I can accept this situation, but you can't touch me for a year. This is your punishment for not telling me about it earlier, Diana declared. What? Duke was stunned. Well then, honey, aren't you just pushing me towards Mara? You are not allowed to touch her either for 1 year, and during this year you are not allowed to sleep with anyone. What? Duke slapped himself hard on the mouth. Why did I have to say that? Why, you don't want to? Diana smiled slightly, a kind look in her eyes that was terrifying. Duke nodded quickly. Yes, of course, I am willing. Hey, do we have to rely on the fifth girl in the future? How about a freezing technique? Honey, I love you so much. Duke leaned forward excitedly and just took a bite. You, Diana glared fiercely. You broke the rules. Does that count? Then hugging, holding hands? Can't we do that? No, Diana hesitated for a moment, feeling a little harsh. Well, except for that kind of thing and kissing. Thank you for not killing the heroine. Duke smiled and wrapped his arms around Diana's waist. Well, why don't we go and relax? This trip to Atlantis wasn't fruitless. I found a paradise that can be a great vacation spot. It has preserved prehistoric landscapes and even dinosaurs. Prehistoric? Diana's eyes lit up. That sounds amazing. When can we go? Hey, you said it. If you don't let me touch you, that's fine. But if you touch me, it won't be considered a foul, right? I'm afraid it will take some time until we dig out Steve, Duke said. Steve? Which one? Diana was taken aback. Of course, it's Steve from World War II. Steve from World War I was burned to ashes and buried in the cemetery. How could we dig him out? Duke was speechless. Oh, do you know where he is? I determined the location after waking up last year. It's time to dig him out. Duke chuckled. Do you think there is any possibility for him and Peggy? If you make her younger, it should be possible. Diana sighed. Peggy is still unmarried and alone. You can't cause trouble for me. All right, Duke said, feeling a bit defensive. Am I a troublemaker? End of this chapter. Chapter 170. Fury's tears over a careless cat. In the House of Wishes, Duke's face was flushed with anger, resembling a pig's liver. A fairy was dancing in front of him, adding to his frustration. All right, enough of this nonsense, Duke said, swatting away Mira's playful hand. If she continued, things would get out of hand. Are you really going to behave? Mira asked, rolling her eyes as she jumped off Duke's lap. No touching for a year? If I said I won't touch, I won't touch, Duke replied. Yeah, right, Mira scoffed. I know you haven't accepted me as your fiancé in your heart. Don't worry, I won't force anything. Even without Diana, I wouldn't force it. I have a year to make you fall in love with me until you're willing to do it for me. Heh. She winked and went upstairs. Someone's coming. I'll hide for now. So many people? Duke turned his head, surprised to see Sharon Carter, Phil Coulson, and Hawkeye approaching. The first two were expected, but Hawkeye's presence was puzzling. Was he here by force? Didn't I tell you to wear thicker clothes? Duke asked, noticing their thin summer attire. Do you want us to die of heat? Sharon Carter retorted, holding up a small box. The thick clothes are inside. Not high-tech at all, Duke muttered, thinking of the advanced suits in Reunion 4 that could change with a touch. Let's go, he called upstairs. I have something to do, so I'll be out for a while. Get familiar with the city in the meantime. He left a card and a mobile phone for Mira. Understood, her voice drifted down from upstairs. Domino, keep an eye on her. She's never been on the surface before, Duke instructed. Domino patted her chest. Don't worry, boss. I won't let anything happen to the boss's wife. The term never been on the surface puzzled the newcomers. Were they dealing with someone from the bottom of the sea? Duke nodded and opened a portal. A blast of icy wind hit them, making them shiver. He had deliberately opened the portal behind them. Let's go, he said with a smile. The portal will only stay open for a minute, so don't wait too long. The four quickly opened the box, took out their clothes, and changed. As healed gear was not very thick, but incredibly warm. They changed quickly, accustomed to such rapid transformations. Domino had already moved aside, feeling like someone had opened a window in a heated room during winter. Is this the place? One of them asked. It's about 1,000 meters away, Duke replied. Then why not teleport us directly there? Duke turned, eyes gleaming with amusement. Are you questioning me? No, the newcomer regretted not wearing more layers and quickly put on protective gear. They knew the area where the U.S. team was chasing was extremely cold. Duke had chosen 3 such areas, places where ice never melted. Proper clothing and shoe covers were essential. S-shield gear was reliable, but it was still nearly 50 degrees below zero. Even their nose hairs were freezing. If they had worn warm clothes from the start, Duke would have warmed them up before entering the snow and ice. But now it was too late. Let's go. Keep up, Duke said, watching the hillbilly corned egg dance to keep warm. As they walked, Duke suddenly asked, By the way, where's Gus? The hillbilly's eyes widened in realization. Thousands of cats, safety first. Careless cats, fury tears, Duke complained. 2 lines of tears? No, it should be 1 line of tears. Hillbilly Braised Egg remained silent. But you don't have to feel embarrassed, Duke continued, because Thanos is worse off than you. He was scratched on both sides of his face, all the way to his upper lip. Duke glanced at the black-faced country bumpkin behind him and smiled smugly. Hawkeye slowly turned his head to look. The scar on his left eye was quite harsh. I thought that story was true, Sharon Carter said, because you refused to give the Kree the Rubik's Cube, so they ruined your eyes. The country bumpkin's face darkened further. So, sir, you lied to me back then? Phil Coulson turned his head to see. The country bumpkin's face was as dark as the night. There was no deception. It was the Kree who ruined my eyes. This was his last bit of stubbornness. By the way, whoever Thanos is, he's also a hem. Thanos. In the future, you will die at the hands of Thanos, Duke said with a half-smile. The country bumpkin's face suddenly stiffened. Heh, just kidding. You still haven't told me where Gus is, Duke pressed. What, you want to take him away? The country bumpkin asked. With my status, I need a pet worthy of it, Duke said. A cat, Gus? What's the identity of this? Coulson was curious. That's not a cat, that's an element devourer, the country bumpkin said suddenly, as if he had been insulted. Being scratched by a cat was not the same as being scratched by a beast. Instant price drop. So, you were really, Sharon Carter complained. Okay, I admit it, but you are not allowed to tell anyone. The country bumpkin sighed, revealing a secret that had been buried for more than 10 years. Where that guy went, I don't know. He was at my house initially. Later, he ran away by himself. Ran away? Everyone was surprised. Why, is it weird? Have you ever seen a cat that can spew out tentacles tens of meters long from its mouth? The country bumpkin looked at the 3 friends with disgust. Dozens of meters? Tentacles? The three of them shivered subconsciously, and even Hawkeye felt a chill all over. He wasn't sure if he was frozen or shocked. Maybe it was taken away by Danforth later? I don't know where it is anyway, Duke suddenly said. Here. Ah? The four looked around, confused. Where? I said Steve is here, and the Red Skull's Valkyrie is under the ice. Look, Duke pointed not far away. In the wind and frost flying all over the sky, a black shadow seemed to loom. After speaking, he pulled his hands in the air. The ice layer seemed to be ripped open by a pair of big hands, rattling and cracking. A big gap was opened. Below, it was the Valkyrie that had been frozen for 60 years. Seeing this, the hillbilly corned egg became short of breath. After 63 years, Captain America was finally about to reappear. End of this chapter. Chapter 171. After 60 years, the corpse of Captain America reappears. Hawkeye and the others were amazed at Duke's strength. Is this the god of law? Let's go. Go. Where? Sharon Carter glanced left and right, puzzled. Duke didn't reply. He simply jumped up, and with a whoosh, he disappeared under the ice. What? Everyone was dumbfounded. What kind of trick was this? This was mirror space. The three of them turned to look at Hawkeye, who seemed equally perplexed. Did I just come to demonstrate? Hawkeye muttered to himself, feeling helpless. But he knew he had to follow through. With a resigned sigh, he jumped up and with another whoosh, disappeared into the ice. At this point, the hillbilly Coulson and Sharon Carter also followed suit, jumping up and diving down. Duke was just kidding. I have to say, this entry method is quite unique, Phil Coulson said with a smile. Everything felt so familiar, as if they were back in 1945. Look what I found, Duke said, pointing to something red under the ice. It's Captain America's shield, Sharon Carter exclaimed. But where is he? He shouldn't be here, Duke replied. The internal changes of the Valkyrie gradually overlapped with the images in his memory. After the impact, it had become a ruin, and the windshield was completely blown out. According to Duke's estimate, Steve had already been blown away by the impact. Here he is, Hawkeye called out suddenly. The three hurried over. Is he still alive? The hillbilly asked nervously. The living Captain America and the dead Captain America were completely different concepts. You see, after 60 years, Captain America reappears, versus after 60 years, Captain America's corpse reappears. It's a completely different concept, okay? The former can be inspiring, but the latter is just one more funeral, one more ceremony. The hillbilly didn't want to find a dead body after all the trouble they went through. Alive! Duke touched the ice cube with his hand and nodded. Okay, let's take him away. Aren't you going to save him? The hillbilly was stunned. Can't you shield? Duke asked, squinting his eyes. Shield? That's a good name, the hillbilly nodded. The current name was still Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau. Okay, you move him. My job is to find people, not to save them. Duke directly opened a portal leading to the S-Shield building. He's your student anyway, right? The hillbilly was a little dissatisfied. Duke's eyes narrowed. Can you go? This plane? The hillbilly was still thinking about taking the Valkyrie away, hoping there might be something useful. Does this plane have anything to do with you? Can you go away? Barton, Hawkeye finally understood that he was not only there to demonstrate, but also to do the heavy lifting. He carried the ice cube and walked towards the portal. Although it was a little heavy, it wasn't too strenuous, just a bit cold. After the four of S-Shield left, Duke thought about it and sank the Valkyrie into the depths of the ocean. To S-Shield? Whispering sound. Isn't that for the Hydra? Although the Hydra in this world was more secretive and careful, it's still infiltrated. This Valkyrie was really outdated, but even so, Duke didn't want to give it to Hydra. Is it time to find Peggy? Well, forget it. I'll leave this choice to my lovely student. Duke smiled, opened a portal, and went home. Recently, a major change occurred in Stark Industries. After a day of recuperating in Los Angeles, Tony Stark rushed back to New York. After a wave of Tianshu, Obadiah Stane, the second largest shareholder of Stark Industries, was purged. Of course, Tony Stark also paid a lot of financial resources, but it was worth it. Business operations, evidence of commercial crimes, and Obadiah Stane, who had been punched with fists. Obadiah Stane had no power to resist. Not only was he expelled from Stark Industries, but he also faced the imminent threat of imprisonment. However, legal proceedings in the United States can be lengthy. This time, the bandits of Arcane were all incinerated by Duke's fire dragon, leaving no one to inform Obadiah about the battle armor. With Duke revealing the truth and Tony taking precautions, they managed to turn the situation to their advantage. The new wave of LA chicken wars ended before it even began. In a dimly lit bar, a disheveled and drunken Obadiah Stane ranted, "Damn it, you little bastard! I've worked for Stark Industries for decades, and you dare to do this to me. I'm at odds with you. If you want my life, then I'll take yours first." "Ha ha! Stark Industries is still mine. No, it should be called Stane Industries." A young man sat next to the inebriated Obadiah. "I'm treating you. Bring him the most expensive glass," he said to the bartender. Obadiah squinted at the young man. "Boy, who are you?" "I'm just like you," the young man replied. "Oh, you also hate Stark Industries?" Obadiah asked. The young man smiled and handed the glass to Obadiah. "Come, drink." "Drink," Obadiah echoed, downing the glass in one gulp. Suddenly, he erupted in pain. Before he could cry out, he spewed a mouthful of blood and collapsed onto the bar counter. The flame in the drink had ignited in his stomach, instantly incinerating it. The young man, Duke, smiled, picked up his glass, and walked out. "Well, tequila tastes good, but you were wrong. I like drinking just like you. Grandson, weeds need to be removed by the root." Tony had merely kicked Obadiah out of Stark Industries, perhaps out of some lingering sentiment. But for Duke, the safest course was to eliminate him entirely, ensuring no future threats. Otherwise, the Iron Overlord might return to challenge Tony again, and such repetitive plots had long grown tiresome. Back in Karazhan, Howard was chasing Tony around. "You son of a bitch, do you still dare to hide?" "Old man, if you call me a bastard, doesn't that make you a rabbit?" Tony retorted while running. Unfortunately, human endurance has limits, but a soul never tires. After a while, Tony was pinned to the ground and thoroughly humiliated. Yes, a soul can indeed hit people. Otherwise, what would Duke do with so many skeletons and reptiles? "Bastard, do you still dare to hide? Are you going to hide?" Duke laughed, holding his wine glass. The scene was truly amusing. Diana shook her head speechlessly. "Did someone find it?" "Yes, it's all frozen in ice," Duke replied. End of this chapter. Chapter 172, Other People's Children. Howard suddenly regained his energy and ran over excitedly, completely disregarding the prodigal son in his hand. "What, did Steve find it?" "Yes, just dug out of the ice." "Steve? Which Steve?" Tony wondered. "Captain America." "What?" Tony's eyes filled with resentment. "Nima, did the Other People's Child appear again? Could it be that he still couldn't escape the curse of Other People's Child?" Since he was sensible, the old man never praised him. Instead, he kept praising how good Captain America was, how great he was, and how righteous he was. Tony grew up under the shadow of Other People's Children. No matter how hard he worked, no matter how much he achieved, the old man never praised him, and he still couldn't stop praising Captain America. That's why, in the first place, Tony was so against Captain America. Hearing that the Other People's Child was alive again, Tony became immediately depressed. "Why, how dare you be unhappy?" Howard turned his head and stared. "Should I be happy? Someone else's child." Howard was speechless for a moment and waved his hand irritably. "Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out of here quickly and find someone to marry for me. I want to see my grandson born within a year." "What?" Tony was stunned. Pregnancy would take 10 months, so wouldn't he only have 2 months to work? It's not hard to find someone to have a baby with. Sprinkle a handful of money, and a lot of young models would be willing to help him with this favor. "But, I see." Turning around, he walked out. "Humph, I won't have a baby until I leave," he muttered. When he reached the door, he turned his head and said, "By the way, Stanislav, I have already left the house." Howard froze for a moment, then nodded. "Understood. Get out." Obadiah Stane, he had known, was not content to be silent. He was able to suppress it when he was still there, but when he left, his ambition immediately rose. It's not that he didn't think about solving this potential trouble before he died, but he still left it after all. Firstly, it was for Tony's experience, and secondly, he really couldn't bear it. After all, they had fought together before. Moreover, the betrayal had not happened, so it was not justified to drive people away. Anyway, with Duke around, he wasn't worried about Tony having an accident. In addition, Obadiah is an ambitious man. He will definitely make a move when his interests are maximized instead of starting as soon as he dies. Tony left, and Duke whispered, "Obadiah is dead." "What?" Howard was startled. This time Tony was kidnapped. He did it. "Damn it, bastard," Howard scolded for a while, then sighed. "Forget it. Everyone is dead, so I won't say anything." A week later, the report Captain America resurrected after 60 years of silence and ice blew across the entire United States like the wind. The soldiers were all excited. The meaning of these 4 words was different. Everywhere was calling, more grand than festive. At this time, Steve Rogers was recuperating in a post-operative recovery room in New York, waiting for the opening of the plot. At this time, Steve Rogers slowly opened his eyes. "Then it's a 3-3 tie with the Dodgers," the radio announced. Captain America blinked, listening to the radio in his ear, getting used to it. There was no suspense in scoring. He swung the bat, and this guy has the ability to strike out again. It was a great game at Ebbets Field. The Phillies held the game to a 3-3 tie, and the Dodgers had 3 guys on the field. Steve Rogers finally got used to it. He sat up slowly, his mind buzzing, a little confused. Where am I and what am I doing? What I heard seemed to be pitch, strike. He leaned over, pitched, swung an arc, over Grimson. Looking outside, Steve Rogers became even more confused. There was something weird, something wrong. Rizzo scored, Reiser ran to third base, and Durocher was waiting to replace him. At this moment, an agent dressed in black entered the room. As a girl from the 1940s opened the door and walked in, she greeted, "Good morning." She glanced at her watch and corrected herself. "Or should I say, good afternoon." "Where am I?" Captain America asked, still disoriented. "You're in a post-op recovery room in New York," the Secret Service girl replied with her signature smile. "The Dodgers lead 8-4. What a fantastic game." Captain America finally came to his senses and realized something was off. He asked again, "Where the hell am I?" The girl seemed confused. "I don't quite understand you." "The game was in May 1941. I know because I was there," he said, his voice growing more insistent. The secret agent girl's expression changed instantly. She thought to herself, "Nima, you guys are S.H.I.E.L.D. Can't you find out the information in advance when you're acting? You should have picked a game after 1945. Such a big loophole. And why is he wearing shoes while lying on the bed? You're practically inviting him to run out. I'll ask you again, where am I?" Captain America demanded, slowly standing up with a determined look on his face. The agent girl hastily pressed a button. "Captain Rogers." "Who are you?" he shouted. At that moment, 2 agents burst into the room, but they were quickly thrown out by Captain America. "Captain Rogers, wait! Attention all agents! Emergency alert! Alert! Attention all agents! Emergency alert!" the girl shouted into her communicator. Despite the alarms, the agents were no match for Captain America. After rushing out of the Secret Service building, Steve Rogers was completely stunned. The world outside was unrecognizable. Different high-rise buildings, vehicles, streets, and styles. Everything had changed. Neon signs and billboards filled the landscape, leaving him bewildered. Standing at a crossroads, Steve Rogers drew his sword and looked around in a daze. Questions flooded his mind. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? As he stood there, confused, countless black cars blocked his way. A man in a black trench coat, Nick Fury, made a dramatic entrance. "Don't be nervous, soldier," Fury said. "Listen, I am deeply sorry for the performance just now, but we thought it best for you to accept this slowly." Captain America, still on edge, asked, "Accept what?" "You have been sleeping, Captain, for 60 years, Fury revealed. Steve Rogers breathed heavily, trying to process the information. 60 years of sleep? No wonder the world had changed so drastically. "Are you okay?" Fury asked, concerned. It's okay, Steve replied, though his voice betrayed his inner turmoil. "It's just that I missed an appointment." End of this chapter. Chapter 173, Steve, the choice is yours. "This is your apartment," Maria Hill said, handing Captain America a folder. "Your card. Here's your ID," still named Steve Rogers. "A 90-year-old man," Steve Rogers remarked, looking at the date of birth on the certificate, July 4th, 1918. He smiled. "Of course, but in my eyes, you are still the 27-year-old captain," Maria Hill replied. "Thanks. Where's the one-eyed one?" Steve Rogers asked. "You mean Chief Fury? He has a lot going on, Maria Hill explained. Understandable. There's your pension on the card and the money from the sale of your property, Maria Hill continued. Steve Rogers smiled. Pension money? Yes, because you have died and have no relatives. This pension has not been issued. As for your house, it has expired. Maria Hill trailed off. Captain America's parents had already died, and he was presumed dead too, so the pension was never issued until now. As for his house, without an heir and due to local redevelopment, the government compensated him. I see. How much is it? Steve asked. About $70,000, Maria Hill replied. Okay, Steve said, sighing. After coming back to life, these were his only assets. He took the folder, put on his backpack, and walked out. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you Chief Fury is not one-eyed, Maria Hill added. Really? That's quite a unique hobby, Steve replied, amused. The truth was, Fury's eye wasn't just scratched by an orange cat, but endowed with a special ability. In Captain Marvel, Talos's face became extremely serious when Fury mentioned it was just a scratch, indicating it was more than it seemed. Perhaps in the future, Fury could even emit white rays. Bang, bang, bang. Half a month passed in a flash. Steve Rogers' life was simple. Apartment, restaurant, training room. Have you suffered from insomnia? Fury appeared, startling Steve. I've been sleeping for 70 years, sir. I've had enough sleep, Steve replied, hitting a sandbag. Then you should go out, celebrate, and look around, Fury suggested. While I was frozen, the world was at war. When I woke up, they said we won, but never mentioned our losses, Steve said. We made a lot of mistakes along the way, Fury admitted. You want me to blend into the outside world? Steve asked. Yeah, you still have friends alive. Go out, see more, take a walk. It might be better than boxing here, Fury advised. Friends? Who? Steve trailed off. He only had one friend, Bucky. But now, 63 years later, Bucky would be a 90-year-old man. Steve didn't dare to see him. At that moment, a white portal appeared, and Steve Rogers was taken aback. Why was this scene so familiar? Out of it stepped, Instructor, you still. Steve stammered, seeing the familiar figure and face. After 63 years, it was a blessing to see familiar faces. Why, you're not the only one who stays young, Duke smiled, opening his arms to hug Steve. How does it feel to sleep for 60 years? Steve laughed. The brain is very clear. Is it frozen? Duke asked. Yes, ice, Steve confirmed. By the way, haven't I told you again and again, remember to jump off the plane? Duke teased. Steve and Fury both looked embarrassed. I was talking to Peggy, Steve began. So it's Carter's fault? Yeah, you were so busy chatting you didn't realize it? Duke joked. Steve was even more embarrassed. He hadn't dared to face, think about, or mention Peggy for half a month. Now that her name was brought up, he couldn't avoid it. She. Steve started, but before he could continue, a girl rushed in. It was Sharon Carter. Duke rolled his eyes and said, Come on, Steve. Let me introduce you to someone. Let me introduce you. This is Peggy Carter's daughter, Sharon Carter. Huh? Three faces looked stunned. The hillbillies thought, Sharon is the daughter of the old boss, Peggy Carter? No way. I don't remember her getting married. When did this happen? Or was it a hidden marriage? But at this age, it seems a bit off. Having a baby in her 60s? Captain America felt a pang in his heart. Peggy, married and had a daughter? Oh, right, I couldn't wait for more than 60 years. But why is her last name still Carter? Did Peggy get divorced? Was she treated badly, and her daughter took her surname? Or was it an unexpected pregnancy, and she didn't even know who the father was? Oh, no. In an instant, Steve's mind conjured up numerous scenarios. He could probably write novels with all these ideas. Sharon Carter, noticing the confusion, thought, Damn it, this guy is messing around again. If I can't impress you, Let me introduce myself. My name is Sharon Carter, and I am Aunt Peggy's niece. Niece? Captain America glanced at Duke in bewilderment. Duke just whistled nonchalantly. Hello, Steve Rogers, he said, extending his hand. The two shook hands briefly. I know you, Captain America. I was also involved in the process of digging you out, although it was mainly his contribution, Sharon Carter said. Giving Duke a hard look, Duke continued to whistle, seemingly proud of himself. Thank you, Captain America replied politely, unsure of what else to say. My aunt often mentioned you and the stories of your struggles. I was influenced by you and became an agent, Sharon Carter explained. Can you sign this? Of course. Captain America took the book she handed him. It was his biography. He signed his name and said, "Being an agent is very hard." "I'm used to it," Sharon Carter replied, happily taking back the book. "This book," Captain America began. "Memories of my aunt," Sharon Carter said. "Peggy, she..." Captain America trailed off. "My aunt is very old now. She is bedridden and can only rely on medicine to maintain her life." "The doctor said she doesn't have many years left," Sharon Carter said, her expression darkening. Duke took out a tube of red medicine and handed it to Captain America. "This is for you." "What is this?" Captain America asked. Duke explained, "I used to tell her that you would reappear in 60 or 70 years. I wasn't sure, but it seems she believed it. She has been alone all this time, dedicating herself to her work. This is a bottle of medicine that can rejuvenate. The choice is up to you. You can choose to restore her youth and fulfill the promise you made decades ago. Or you can choose not to give it to her and watch her live out her remaining years." Captain America was silent for a moment, contemplating the choice before him. Sharon Carter looked on, her heart sinking. "My boyfriend, woo-woo, flew away." End of this chapter. Chapter 174, 172.58 years without eating. Steve Rogers stared at the red medicine bottle in his hand, hesitating. To be honest, he didn't know how to face Peggy Carter. For the past half-month, he had been working hard to familiarize himself with the world and adapt to it. He was trying to accept all the new things, including Peggy. He had once searched for information about Peggy. Of course, there was very little available, only some early details. However, Peggy Carter had also appeared in the public eye. The most recent time was when she was 70 years old. Seeing the old Peggy felt like a stab to his heart. It would have been fine if she had married and had someone to accompany her. At least she would have forgotten the past and stopped being sad. But she hadn't. She had been waiting for him for more than 60 years. Such deep affection. But it made him flinch. He didn't know how to face her or how to make up for it. "Speak from the heart," Duke patted Steve Rogers on the shoulder. "Don't overthink it. Go see her first." "See who?" Steve asked, confused. "You'll know when you go," Duke replied, opening a portal and returning to Karazhan. "Welcome, welcome, warmly welcome." Steve was stunned when he saw the grand banner and the familiar figure. "Dr. Erskine, you were killed by Hydra." "It was just a ruse. I was going to die no matter what. Fortunately, I retired," Dr. Erskine smiled. Although Steve Rogers didn't fully understand, he guessed a little. "Welcome back, Steve." "Howard, you are." Howard's appearance shocked him more than Dr. Erskine's because Howard was completely transparent. "I'm dead. This is just my soul." "Oh, it's a long story. Let's talk about it later." Howard patted Steve Rogers on the shoulder with a smile. Seeing Diana walking out, Steve immediately stood at attention. "Hello, instructor." Diana was also his instructor, but compared to Duke, she was stricter. During training back then, she had taught him a lot. In other words, he was more afraid of Diana than Duke. "Okay, don't be nervous. You are no longer in Camp Caspian," Diana waved her hand dismissively. "Yes, instructor," Steve replied. Duke put his arm around Steve's shoulders and walked towards a corridor on one side. "Okay, don't be nervous. Erskine, let's go. It's time to wake up the other one." "Oh," Dr. Erskine hastened to follow. Howard also went to the theater. Diana didn't follow. It was just a reunion of a pair of old friends, nothing to watch. When they arrived at the huge freezing machine and saw the familiar face in the freezer, Steve Rogers became even more excited. "Bucky, why is he like this?" "He searched for you for 5 years but failed to find you, so he came back and asked me to freeze him until the day you appeared," Duke explained. "Bucky." Steve Rogers' eyes turned red. "Erskine, let's do it," Duke instructed. "Look at me," Dr. Erskine said. It was a technical task to freeze people and then unseal them. It wasn't as simple as soaking someone in hot water. First, they cut off the power supply to stop the constant low-temperature freezing, and then used the power of the ruby crystal to wake up the body of the frozen person. About half an hour later, Bucky came back to life, slowly opening his eyes. "Steve? I might be dreaming again." "Hey, interesting. It seems that I dreamed of many people this time." "Dr. Erskine, Howard, how did you become transparent and—" Smack, a big slap greeted him. Bucky was stunned. "Are you awake?" Duke shouted. "If you haven't woken up, how about doing it again?" He raised his hand again. Wait, I'm awake. So, this isn't a dream, it's real. Steve, are you back? Bucky stepped out of the frozen compartment excitedly, but after being frozen for 60 years, he stumbled and fell to his knees. I know that my kindness to you is as great as a mountain, but it's not good to be so generous. Duke, who was standing directly opposite, laughed. Bucky's face turned black. I just didn't get used to it for a while. What kind of excuse is that? Do you want to kneel a little longer? Duke pretended not to hear clearly. Bucky's face turned even darker. Bucky's face darkened even more, and he tried to stand up but found that he couldn't. He realized that Duke must be playing with him. Well, I'm very grateful to you, Bucky said, his voice tinged with sarcasm. Duke smiled and eased the pressure. That's right. You have to be honest. Bucky stood up, his expression still dark, and patted Steve on the shoulder. You're still so young. You're old, Steve retorted. If I hadn't been searching for you in the ice and snow for 5 years, if I hadn't been battered by the cold wind, how could I be the youngest? Besides, I am 33 years old, and you were only 27 when you were frozen, Bucky replied, a hint of a smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Bucky, Steve exclaimed. Steve. The atmosphere suddenly became emotional. The two friends embraced each other tightly, tears streaming down their faces. Whose tears were they? It didn't matter. After a while, they stopped crying. Bucky smiled and said, Steve, from now on, I will surpass you again and reclaim my place as the protagonist. I admit that after you became a super soldier, I was no longer your match, but now I alone can take on 10 of you. Oh, really? Steve challenged. Of course, Bucky replied with a grin. His left arm transformed into a thick dragon's arm, and his hand morphed into a dragon's claw. How about it? Are you afraid? Steve Rogers looked amazed. You look like the big villain boss in an online game that has been defeated. Online game? What is that? Bucky asked, bewildered. He knew nothing about this new world, while Steve had at least half a month to get acquainted with it. Haha, it's nothing. By the way, instructor, why did his hands become like this? Steve turned to Duke. After falling off the cliff, his arm was broken, and I reattached it with a dragon arm, Duke explained briefly. I'm sorry, Bucky, that day. Steve began. Bucky waved his hand dismissively. It's not your fault that I fell. Anyway, we won, didn't we? Yes, we won, Steve agreed. By the way, how many years have I been frozen? Bucky asked. It's 2008, Dr. Erskine said. 2008? Doesn't that mean I have been frozen for 58 years? Steve has been frozen for 63 years. Bucky calculated quickly and said in surprise, No wonder I feel hungry. You think you're hungry? Duke scoffed. Are you really hungry? Impossible. Bucky's freezing was different from Steve's. It was based on the magical freezing of the blue dragon gem, which reduced his body's metabolism to an extreme level. At the same time, the dragon crystal in his arm provided the most basic sustenance. There was also a supplement of red dragon gems outside the frozen chamber. He wasn't hungry at all. He was as full as the day he was frozen 50 years ago. The only reason he felt hungry was because he thought he should be after hearing he had slept for 58 years. After all, he hadn't eaten in 58 years. End of this chapter. Chapter 175, Black Widow is no longer with you. Despite everything, meals still had to be eaten. After dinner, Steve Rogers, Bucky, and Howard Stark had a small drinking party. Even though he had seen it just now, Steve still found it amazing. Howard, what's your theory about eating? Steve asked, curiosity evident in his voice. Yeah, as a ghost, why can you eat? Bucky added. Howard was nibbling on peanuts and sipping barley wine. You seem to have some misunderstandings about ghosts, he said. Steve and Bucky exchanged puzzled glances. Could it be possible to eat? Has it always been the public's self-righteous assumption? Steve asked. Almost, Howard nodded. Eating is still possible. However, most ghosts can only absorb the taste of food. If you see a normal fresh fruit that decays quickly within a day or two, it proves that ghosts have been there. As for these foods, they are processed in a special way so that I can experience the sensation of eating rather than just smelling it. Oh, Steve and Bucky said in unison, nodding in understanding. Steve was silent for a moment before taking out a small red bottle. I have something I want to consult with you, he said. Howard examined the bottle closely. Oh, isn't this something Erskine made? It's a priceless treasure that can keep people young and rejuvenated, he said, confirming its authenticity. That's it, a treasure? Bucky was surprised. Nonsense, Howard glared at him. This not only restores your youthful appearance, but also recreates your life. Your body returns to its youthful state, effectively giving you at least 50 or 60 more years of life. Do you still think it's not a priceless treasure? Bucky sucked in a breath of cold air. Hiss! He realized the true value of the bottle. So it's for Peggy, right? Howard asked, finishing his beer in one go. Did the instructor tell you? Steve asked. Does it need to be said? When you come to your place, who else could it be for besides Peggy? Howard replied. Bucky was curious. Peggy, is she still alive? If she were dead, you wouldn't need this, Howard said, glancing at Bucky. He wondered if Bucky had become less intelligent after waking up, or if he had never been smart at all. Oh, that's right, Bucky shrugged, munching on peanuts. So, your instructor means. You want to make a couple of you and fulfill the fate you had 60 years ago? But didn't she get married and have children during those 60 years? Isn't it wrong for you to intervene as a third party? No, Howard shook his head. I tried to introduce her to someone, but she refused. He smiled at Steve. I didn't know you would come back to life at the time. I was afraid she wouldn't be able to move on, so I wanted to divert her attention. Can you imagine a woman who has devoted herself to work for 40 consecutive years? Howard sighed. I died later, and only after I came to Karajan did I know what Uncle Duke told Peggy in the early years. Bucky asked curiously, What's the matter? He said Steve would reappear in 70 years and let her choose. I didn't know at the time. I thought she was buried in work because she couldn't get over her feelings. But now it seems she had already made her choice back then. Howard patted Steve on the shoulder. Peggy is a good woman. Now you have a chance. It's worth cherishing. Steve downed a bottle. I know. I just don't know how to face her. Bucky suddenly spoke up. Steve, I understand what you mean. You don't know what kind of mentality you should use to face her, right? Love, the mentality of treating a lover, or compensate, make up, face people who were hurt and delayed youth by you. Steve nodded. It was worthy of being a good friend. Bucky understood him perfectly. Then let me ask you, do you still like her? Bucky asked. What do you mean still? Although I have been frozen for 63 years, my feelings are still from 63 years ago, Steve said. That's it. Since you still like her, then go to her. It's not your style to hesitate, Steve. You're the one who never runs away, Bucky said. Okay, Steve said, finishing his drink in one gulp. I'll go find her tomorrow. Howard hurriedly stopped him. Wait, have you thought this through? Once you go, the two of you will be tied together. In the future, you have to treat her well, take care of her, and form a family. You might even have a daughter. You'll spend your whole life together. Why does this sound like a priest officiating a wedding? And why a daughter? Bucky complained. Riff, I've thought it through. Steve nodded firmly. It's good if you really understand. You just woke up, and there are a lot of beauties outside waiting for you, the captain, to pick. Make sure you truly like her. Don't waste her youth only to abandon her later. If that happens, it would be better to let her live out her life naturally, Howard warned sternly. Bucky patted Steve on the shoulder and laughed. Let me pick the beauties outside instead of the captain. I'll take on that burden. Captain, you can go to the grave with peace of mind. Get out! Steve slapped Bucky's hand away angrily. I've thought it through. No matter what the future holds, I like her now. Thinking about the distant future is pointless. For now, I need to make up for Peggy's years of waiting. Duke clapped his hands and stepped forward. Well said, Steve. Sharon Carter and Black Widow are all yours. Instructor! Steve stood up quickly. I'm glad you didn't disappoint me. If you had run away, you wouldn't be Captain America anymore, Duke said with a smile. The captain must be righteous and honorable. He may be confused at times, but he must always be decent. A captain with a stain is no captain at all. In Duke's view, the reason Captain America couldn't lift the hammer in Avengers 2 was due to his guilt towards Carter. It wasn't until Carter's death in Captain America Civil War that he let go of this guilt, allowing him to lift the hammer in Avengers Endgame. Thank you, Instructor, for giving me this opportunity. Get a good night's sleep. I'll take you to London tomorrow. Show off your energy. Duke said, patting Steve on the shoulder. No, instructor, I want to go there by myself. It will be more formal, Steve insisted. Although Duke didn't fully understand why it had to be formal in this way, he nodded. Okay, but do you know how to fly? There should be no problem. I've studied it, Steve replied. Howard laughed. Ha ha ha! He decided on his relationship a long time ago. Steve laughed too. No, just... All right, enough talking. We're still waiting for your wedding banquet, Bucky laughed. Steve shook his head with a wry smile. End of this chapter. Chapter 176. I'm in the Jurassic Force. In the waiting hall, Steve Rogers looked up and saw a beautiful blonde approaching him. Hello, Captain, she greeted. Are you? Steve asked, slightly confused. I'm here to take you to London, she explained. Oh, thank you, Steve replied, understanding that this must have been arranged by his instructor. Was he being tested again? The flight to London was uneventful, and after 8 hours, the plane landed smoothly at London International Airport. Steve was surprised. Could it be that he was really just sent to London and not being tested? Captain, can you give me the biography in your hand? The blonde girl asked with a smile. Oh yes, Captain America nodded, handing over the book he had bought at the airport bookstore. It was a biography written by Peggy Carter based on her own memories. Although he hadn't finished reading it, he figured he could buy another copy later. Can I sign it? She asked. Of course, Steve replied. With a few swift strokes, she signed the book. Then my mission is complete. Goodbye, Captain, she said, waving goodbye. Goodbye and thank you, Steve responded. Following the address and road number marked on the card, Steve Rogers finally found Peggy's residence. He stood in front of the unfamiliar house, hesitating to ring the doorbell. Just as he was about to retract his hand, the door opened. They looked at each other, stunned. After 60 years, a pair of lovers met again, one old and one young. Today's Peggy Carter could still walk by herself, unlike the bedridden old woman she would become 8 years later. Steve, is that you? Peggy asked, her voice trembling. It's me, Peggy, Steve confirmed. Steve, Peggy Carter was so excited that she almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, the nanny behind her ran out in time to support her. Miss Carter, you have to be careful, the nanny cautioned. The nanny's eyes widened in shock, a look that Steve keenly noticed. Was it fear? Why would she be afraid? Before he could ponder further, Peggy rushed to the door and quickly opened it, her eyes red with emotion. Steve, is it really you? She asked, reaching out to touch his face but hesitating, afraid her old and wrinkled skin might scratch him. Tears streamed down her face. Steve's eyes were also red. He grabbed Peggy's old hand and placed it on his face. I'm real, Peggy. Of course I'm real. If you don't believe me, feel it. It's true, it's true. Steve, you're back. You're really back, Peggy said, her voice breaking as she coughed painfully, a faint trace of blood appearing. Peggy, what's wrong? Steve asked anxiously. What's the matter with her? He demanded, turning to the nanny. Miss Carter has been suffering from stomach ulcers, trachea, and lung diseases. She comes out to bask in the sun at this time every day. She's been using medication to control her condition. She's just too emotional right now, the nanny explained quickly. Then hurry up. Steve began, but Peggy interrupted. Don't worry, I'm happy, Peggy said, forcing a smile. You're back. Even if I'm coughing up blood, I'm happy. Stop talking nonsense. I'll carry you inside, Steve said, lifting her gently and carrying her into the house. She felt so light, not even 70 pounds. His heart ached, remembering how she used to feel heavier in his arms. The nanny followed, her eyes flashing with an unreadable expression, but she still gritted her teeth and chased after them. After taking her medication, Peggy felt a little better. Steve, too excited, had forgotten about the red medicine Duke had given him. Don't worry, I haven't died so easily yet, Peggy said, enduring the pain with a smile. You scared me, Steve admitted. I've lived my whole life, and my only regret is that you didn't live yours. Steve, you came back alive. We haven't seen each other for so long, Peggy said, her voice filled with emotion. How could I leave my beauty? She owes me a dance, Steve replied, his eyes shining with determination. Steve laughed. I can't jump anymore. Only then did he remember the medicine Duke had given him. He quickly took it out and handed it to Peggy. Quick, drink this. It's from the instructor. Duke, what is this? Peggy Carter asked, bewildered. Yes, it's a medicine that can restore your youth, Steve explained. Peggy took the vial, still in a daze, and opened her mouth to drink it. At that moment, the door was slammed open. A nanny rushed in, brandishing a pistol. "Be careful," Steve shouted, his face paling. He couldn't fathom why a nanny would want to shoot Peggy, but there was no time to ponder. He grabbed the quilt and spun it up just as the gun fired. The bullet was blocked by the quilt, now twisted into a ball. The U.S. team charged forward, grabbing the pistol with one hand to prevent another shot, and with his other hand, he punched the nanny in the head. The force of his punch was immense, far beyond what even Tyson could muster. The nanny's eyes spurted blood, and she fell limply to the ground, clearly dead. Maggie? Peggy Carter was shocked. She couldn't understand why the nanny, who had been with her for nearly 20 years, would suddenly try to kill her. Moreover, the way she entered the room suggested she was a trained agent. "The situation is not right, Peggy. Drink the medicine quickly. We need to leave. This person was clearly after you," Steve urged. Without hesitation, Peggy raised her head and drank the red liquid. The next scene astonished Steve. Peggy's body began to inflate like a balloon. Her old wrinkled skin became tight, smooth, and elastic again. Her aging eyes regained their radiance, her gray hair turned black, and her frail body filled out robustly. In less than 5 minutes, the elderly woman who weighed less than 100 pounds transformed into a beautiful young woman weighing over 140 pounds. Peggy Carter stammered, looking at her plump arms in disbelief. She ran to the mirror and stared at her reflection. She looked as she did at 45, beautiful and vibrant. Her skin was lustrous, and even she found it mesmerizing. "Is this really me?" she asked, unsure if she was questioning Steve or herself. "It's you, Peggy," Steve confirmed, elated. The woman who had captured his heart was back. "But we need to leave quickly. Pack up anything important. I think someone will be here soon." "Right," Peggy agreed. "There's nothing important here. Since I retired, I only kept some old mementos." Steve pulled out his phone. Instructor. "What's the matter?" came the reply. "Where are you now? Can you come to London to pick us up? Something's wrong here." "What's the situation?" "I'm in the Jurassic period," the instructor responded. Steve looked blank, utterly confused. End of this chapter. Chapter 177. You really went to the Jurassic period. Steve looked bewildered. Jurassic? Is it the Jurassic that I think it is? Yes, Master Logic. Pig bare metal. No, he said Jurassic. Instructor, don't joke around. You can't possibly go back 1,000,000 years, Steve Rogers said skeptically. And if you really went to the Jurassic, how could I call you? Oh, my special phone can get a signal even at the bottom of the sea. Jurassic, no signal. It's nothing, Duke replied. Yes, Duke was indeed on a Jurassic expedition. The dark sea in the center of the earth. Last time, he accompanied Mara to find Atlana and only took a quick glance. This time, he carefully inspected the area to see if there was any danger and to check the terrain in advance for a vacation. Okay, I'll pick you up. Duke opened a portal, left the dark sea in the center of the earth, and went directly to Peggy Carter's home in London. Damn, Steve, the game was so intense that you actually killed a nanny? Captain America and Peggy Carter turned their heads and took a deep breath. You really went to the Jurassic. A dragon was perched on Duke's shoulders. To be precise, it was a dragon. Its whole body was very thin, its abdomen only slightly thicker than its tail, and half of its body was its tail. From the front of its head to the end of its tail, it was only about 70 centimeters long, probably not even as heavy as an old hen. At this moment, it was standing on Duke's right shoulder, screaming restlessly. If you looked closely, it was completely wrapped in an air ball. Of course. Is it interesting to fool you? Duke pouted. Druid's affinity for animals made him especially attractive to them, and baby dinosaurs were no exception. Is this a fine-jawed dragon? I watched Jurassic Park too. At the beginning, a little girl was attacked by a group of fine-jawed dragons. It should be that big, Peggy Carter said. While the two were surprised, they also became very interested, even forgetting about the killer who could appear at any time. Long time no see, Peggy. You are still so beautiful, Duke praised. Thank you. Peggy Carter was in a good mood. After all, she had accepted Duke's kindness and was not as cold towards him as before. She thought to herself, If I had come 10 minutes earlier, I wouldn't have said that. Jurassic Park 2? Captain America was curious. Yes, directed by Spielberg. You must have never seen it, Peggy Carter replied. Oh. Steve didn't answer. He didn't even know who Spielberg was. What is this air balloon? Duke glanced at him. When you were in school, you must not have learned history and biology well. The climate in the Jurassic period is different from the current climate. Although it won't die instantly when you bring it out, it will soon hiccup and fart. I didn't learn this in school. The history textbooks only started when people appeared, and there were no people in the Jurassic period. Steve didn't know that there were already people in the Jurassic period, but they just weren't recorded. Protoss and the like were born billions of years ago. This is really a dinosaur. Isn't it a toy? Steve still couldn't believe it. The instructor is very powerful, but how can he be so powerful as to go to the Jurassic era and then come back? It's really from the Jurassic era. If you don't believe me, look at it. Duke opened the portal to the dark sea in the center of the earth. The two of them leaned closer and took a look inside, and they were suddenly speechless. It was real. A small pterosaur spotted the portal and swooped down, then hit the portal with a boom and slid down slowly. Finally, it shook its head and used its sharp beak to peck at the portal, but after trembling for a long time, it stopped moving. He shook his head, spread his wings, and soared into the sky. He circled above, curious about the strange object below. Could he eat it? Could he continue? In the end, he flew away. The sudden appearance of the pterosaur start led both of them, especially Captain America, who had been calculating whether he could win in a fight against such a creature. Duke smiled and tossed the slender-jawed dragon back into the dark sea at the center of the earth. Do you believe it? Duke asked. Yes. Steve's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Instructor, you are incredible. Captain America was too excited to speak coherently. Instructor, can you also take me to the Jurassic period to see it for myself? At this moment, he looked like an eager child. Be realistic, Peggy Carter interjected, pushing Captain America gently. You can't just go to the Jurassic period. The temperature, climate, and oxygen levels are different there. You'd die. No way. It should be about the same, right? Dinosaurs breathe oxygen. If they can, it means humans can too, Captain America argued. Duke laughed. Actually, the oxygen content in the atmosphere was above 25% during the Jurassic period, whereas it's around 21% now. It wasn't until the end of the Cretaceous period that the oxygen levels dropped to what they are today. As for the temperature, it was indeed warmer and more humid, but still within the range humans can tolerate. See, Captain America exclaimed. Peggy Carter sighed, rubbing her forehead. She felt that Steve's IQ had dropped significantly since he woke up from being frozen. I'm sure that place isn't the Jurassic period. It should be an independent, closed world where Jurassic creatures are preserved, Duke explained. Isn't it the Jurassic? Captain America looked a bit disappointed, feeling deceived by his instructor once again. It's not the Jurassic, but it's similar in terms of danger. First, you have to find the end of the world, then dive deep into the sea. There, you must break through a realm filled with millions of piranhas and reach the ocean floor. You'll find a group of pillars that look like thunderclouds. After passing through them, you can reach the inner world of the earth, Duke said. Hiss. Both of them gasped. The end of the world? Where is that? The earth is a sphere. Does it even have an end? And millions of piranhas? Piranhas are terrifying enough, but piranha men? They'd be eaten alive. Not to mention the thundercloud pillars at the ocean's deepest part. Why would there be thunderclouds at the bottom of the ocean? Clearly, these are no ordinary thunderclouds. Even planes struggle to break through the thundercloud layers in the sky, let alone these bizarre thundercloud pillars in the ocean's depths. Indeed, reaching this place is as difficult as reaching the Jurassic period because it's impossible for ordinary people to pass. End of this chapter. Chapter 178. This is a child New York. Hell's Kitchen. Wish Shack. You mean that babysitter wanted to kill you? Duke looked at Peggy Carter in surprise, then at Captain America. I thought you wanted to force her, but she refused, and you got so angry that you punched her to death. Captain America. Ha! Just kidding. You can stay here for now, in the basement, Duke laughed. At the same time, he was thinking to himself, could it be that the nanny was arranged by Hydra? The possibility was high. After all, Peggy Carter was a veteran and one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D., holding many secrets. Although retired and pushed out of power, she was still an unstable bomb. Hydra wouldn't dare to assassinate her openly. After all, she was the only one among the three elders still alive. Colonel Phillips had passed away early, and Howard's assassination had already attracted S.H.I.E.L.D.'s attention. They couldn't recklessly assassinate another elder. They could only watch and wait for her to die naturally. Duke guessed right. The nanny was indeed arranged by Hydra. However, she wasn't the well-trained agent Peggy Carter thought. To avoid being seen through, Hydra didn't send out highly trained agents because they were easier to identify. Contradictory? Are agents who have received rigorous training easy to be seen through? In fact, there is no contradiction. Peggy Carter was a formidable agent in her own right. The longer you train, the more you develop small habits that are hard to get rid of, making it easier to expose your identity as an agent. For instance, your hands are the most exposed. Practicing with pistols for a long time leaves calluses on the index finger knuckle from pulling the trigger. The root of the thumb, the webbing between the thumb and index finger, etc., are also telltale signs. Experienced people can see it at a glance, and it cannot be eliminated with some skincare products. Hydra was worried about being exposed, so they arranged for someone who had received basic training but was successfully brainwashed. It was precisely because of this that Peggy Carter was lucky enough to survive. If the nanny had been a conservatively trained agent, Peggy Carter might not have escaped the fate of being shot. The 20-year nanny had long forgotten how to shoot, so she hesitated for a few tenths of a second. In a master's move, this pause was fatal. During this moment of hesitation, the bullet was blocked by the quilt rolled up by Captain America, and the nanny lost her life. "Do you know what happened to the nanny who wanted to kill you?" Duke asked. "I don't know." Peggy Carter shook her head and sighed. "If I knew, I wouldn't have let her stay by my side." So, does Peggy Carter know that Hydra has infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D.? Maybe she knows, maybe she doesn't. As Nick Fury's former leader, if she knew, she could warn him to be careful. Of course, maybe she also doesn't trust him completely. Maybe she didn't know that Hydra had already infiltrated. After all evil plans are covered with the cloak of hypocrisy. Forget it, let's settle down first. Is it safe here? Peggy Carter worried. S.H.I.E.L.D. should be unsafe. Someone wants to kill me. It can only be because of my identity. Don't worry, it's safe here. Domino, Duke called out. Boss, Domino responded, jumping out. Good job, Duke praised. The little girl had taken Duke's advice and cropped her exploding hair, and she didn't look so bad. With her here, no one can hurt you. Her? Peggy Carter looked at Domino suspiciously. This is just a child. Don't believe me? Look, Duke condensed a small ice puck and threw it towards Domino. Without seeing what Domino did, a hamburger flew over, blocking the puck perfectly. A voice sounded. Sorry, I didn't pay attention. Did I hit someone? It's strange, when I went down the stairs, I tripped over my own feet. Mara apologized with a smile. She was holding a hamburger and eating it while walking. As she descended the stairs, she stumbled, and the hamburger flew out of her hands. Captain America. Look, Mara said, placing her hands on her hips. Domino, it's you again. I'm sorry. Domino replied with a sheepish smile, retreating into the bar. If you do this again, I'll get really angry, Mara warned, clearly frustrated. Over the past few days, Domino had been accompanying Mara on her shopping trips, and Mara had witnessed Domino's uncanny luck firsthand. It seemed as though the goddess of luck was always watching over Domino, ensuring that no harm could befall her. Any potential danger was either averted by unforeseen circumstances or blocked entirely. Mara herself had experienced a string of bad luck, often finding herself in harm's way while Domino remained unscathed. Initially, Mara thought it was just her own misfortune. That was until she saw a basketball hurtling towards Domino. Mara had gone out to buy a cold drink, and when she returned, she saw the basketball hoop tilt and fall, with the backboard blocking the basketball from hitting Domino. It was then that Mara realized the true extent of Domino's luck. It was as if she was riding a wave of extraordinary fortune. In Deadpool 2, for instance, a group of people parachuted from the sky only to meet various grisly ends: electrocution, helicopter propellers, and more. Even Deadpool wasn't spared. Yet, Domino managed to land safely and keep up with the convoy. On a windy day, a car that could have hit her instead passed harmlessly over her head. "My burger," Mara lamented, her voice filled with sorrow. "Hee, I can't control it. I use everything around me to ensure my safety," Domino explained. "You're safe, but I'm the one who ends up unlucky," Mara retorted angrily. "Domino's luck isn't just for her. As long as she wants, we can be safe by her side too," Duke interjected. If you make me unlucky again, I'll throw you into the sea," Mara threatened, glaring at Domino. In truth, Mara had discovered a loophole in Domino's luck. It wasn't infallible. There were limits to her controllable abilities, and she couldn't avoid large-scale attacks like nuclear explosions or electromagnetic pulses. No matter how lucky she was, some things were beyond her control. "Got it," Domino acknowledged. "You two rest up. I'll be leaving now." "Oh, and this is Mara, my girlfriend, the only girlfriend," Duke said with a smile before departing. 2 people. "Peggy, I plan to join S.H.I.E.L.D. Since there's a problem there, let's start from the source," Captain America said. "You want me to act like I don't know?" Peggy Carter asked, instantly understanding his plan. End of this chapter. Chapter 179. I Drank Coke in the Jurassic. Captain America and Peggy Carter had no idea that less than 10 minutes after they left, a small team of men in black suits and sunglasses arrived at her house. "Sure enough, the man is dead," one of the men in black sunglasses said as he inspected the nanny's body on the ground. "It really is Captain America. One hit kills. This angle, this punch." A faint but terrifying fist mark was visible on the nanny's left temple. Another man in black sunglasses ran over. "I've checked. Everything in the house is basically untouched." The man who seemed to be the captain nodded silently. "Captain, I've already contacted the monitoring team outside. Only Captain America was seen coming in, but he wasn't seen going out. Back door? Secret passage?" "I checked. No." "No." The captain in the black suit immediately slapped his subordinate. "Could they have disappeared into thin air?" The man in sunglasses lowered his head. "I'm afraid so. We monitored that his mobile phone dialed a number, but..." "But what?" the captain demanded angrily. "I can't track the other party. I can't find any information about them. And..." Captain America's voice was also interfered with. "You should listen to it yourself." The man in sunglasses turned on the audio on his phone. "You, Zila, pick me up. Zila, condition. At. Instructor, Zila." The captain's face contorted in frustration. "What's wrong with the audio?" "There was some kind of strong interference. We checked, and there are no jammers in this room. Almost all of Captain America's words are buzzing and garbled. On the other side, it's a mess of words, completely indecipherable." The man in sunglasses explained. The phone had been given to Steve by Maria Hill, but she hadn't bought it herself. This small matter was handled by her subordinates. It seemed that Maria Hill's side had also been infiltrated by Hydra. "You, pick me, status, instructor?" The captain read each word aloud. When he said instructor, his body trembled. "Oh no, it's Duke." "Dharma God Duke?" the man in sunglasses echoed, confused. He knew some news, and the reason why Hydra's actions were highly vigilant was because of this instructor. Could the instructor mean someone else? No, even if he has other instructors, those people are already dead. It can only be Duke, because he is the only one still alive. "Now, things are in big trouble," the captain said. The man in sunglasses remained silent. This kind of decision was for the captain to make. "Captain, there's a medicine bottle here, and there seems to be some residue in it. It was obviously just drunk." "Take it back for testing." "Yes." Unfortunately, they were doomed to fail. It was impossible to test the results because once the potion was opened for more than a minute, it would completely lose its effect and automatically transform into water. No matter how they tested it, they would only get the chemical formula for H2O. "Boss, the situation is like this, you see." The captain was reporting the task. "It's not your fault. It was our carelessness this time." "Boss, I guess Peggy Carter will appear in New York as long as..." "Okay, you don't need to worry about these things anymore. They will disappear immediately, and I have my own way to deal with them." "Yes, boss. But, Peggy Carter doesn't have many years left to live. In the council, a man who looked like Trump hung up his phone and cursed fiercely. A bunch of trash. Alexander Pierce. Now, the storm is coming. Not many years left to live? Fool. Duke had just dug out Steve Rogers, so how could it be as simple as letting him meet Peggy Carter? Those under his command were long-lived. Obviously, he has some way to restore Peggy Carter's youth. Although she may not know that Hydra has infiltrated, she has only been retired for a little over 10 years, and many people still remember her. If she wants to return, it might be difficult to stop her. Hopefully, these guys don't know about their existence, right? And the worst part is, this impulsive assassination must have aroused their vigilance. In the basement of the House of Wishes, a portal suddenly appeared with a soft whoosh. "Clean up, we're going to Jurassic," Duke announced as he walked in. He was greeted by an unexpected scene. The sudden appearance of a person made Captain America shiver, and Peggy Carter cried out in surprise. "Oh, sorry. Just pretend I didn't come. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything." "You go on. Go on," Duke stammered, quickly jumping back through the portal, which then closed behind him. "This." Captain America was a little embarrassed. Peggy Carter blushed even more, pushing Captain America away and cursing, "That guy is a bastard. He did it on purpose. I'm going to kill him." The portal lit up again, and Peggy Carter quickly pulled the quilt over herself in fear. No one appeared, but a voice floated through. "Who to kill? Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, pack up immediately, clean the battlefield, and I'll pick you up in 5 minutes to go to Jurassic." "You," Peggy Carter yelled, furious. However, the portal closed again. "Wah!" Duke laughed heartily. He enjoyed seeing Peggy flustered. 10 minutes later, Duke reappeared in the House of Wishes. "Mira, let's go. Come down quickly. Domino." "Boss, this is the wish list I received recently," Domino said, handing over a list. "Understood. Close the door and take 3 days off." "Yeah. Follow me to Jurassic." "What?" Steve and Peggy Carter both came up, the former looking embarrassed, the latter ashamed and angry. "What's the matter with you two? Have you done something bad?" Duke pretended to be serious. "You? What? I didn't see you," Duke teased. "Shut up," Peggy Carter shouted, cutting him off. "Okay," Duke said, opening the portal and bringing the 4 of them back to Karazhan. "Victor, are you ready with what I asked for?" "Of course, a big box is enough," Victor replied. "Okay, this time I'm going to drink Coke to my heart's content in the Jurassic period," Duke declared with a grin. End of this chapter. Chapter 180, Grilled Chicken Wings in Jurassic. The atmosphere was a bit awkward. It was the first time the 2 women had met. Duke originally hadn't planned to bring Mara on this trip to the Jurassic. Firstly, it was mainly to accompany Diana and help her relax. Secondly, Mara had already been to the Dark Sea in the center of the Earth. Thirdly, he was afraid the 2 might fight. The idea of a harem only exists in fantasy. In the real world, it's challenging enough to take care of 1 partner, let alone 2. The notion of them getting along harmoniously was wishful thinking. Duke was just hoping they wouldn't fight. This vacation was primarily to take care of Diana's emotions. It's like when you have a cat and bring a new kitten into the house. You need to keep the new kitten isolated initially and be extra attentive to the older cat. You give her delicious food, play with her, and reassure her that she won't be forgotten. Meanwhile, you also need to spend time with the new kitten, feeding and playing with her to make her feel welcome. Duke wanted to ensure Diana felt special, but he also didn't want to leave Mara alone in New York, as it might make her feel neglected. It's like locking the kitten in the house with food and water, but not playing with her. She would still feel strange and resistant after a week. Duke sighed, hoping the 2 wouldn't fight. He brought Domino along mainly to keep Mara company, as Domino had been spending a lot of time with her and knew her well. The 2 women looked at each other, and there seemed to be sparks flying between them. The atmosphere instantly became tense. Duke was nervous, fearing a confrontation. His apprentices and fellows were also on edge. Although they knew Diana well and she was part of the hero gang, Mara was also Duke's woman. It was an awkward situation, especially for Duke's apprentice, who saw both women as teachers' wives. Jennifer clenched her fist lightly, thinking, "I also want to be a teacher's wife, huh?" Fortunately, Diana had the grace of a mature woman. She extended her hand and said, "This is our first meeting, Diana." "Hello, Mara." Mara, proud as ever, reached out and shook Diana's hand firmly. Duke watched nervously, fearing that Mara might crush Diana's hand. He knew Mara was no match for Diana. Thankfully, they just shook hands lightly. "Phew. What are you afraid of?" Diana asked with a half-smile. "Ahem, how could I be afraid? The word fear doesn't exist in my dictionary," Duke laughed nervously. "Is it?" "Of course. Let's stop talking and get going. Go, go, go!" Duke quickly changed the subject and opened the portal to the dark sea in the center of the earth. Seeing Jurassic for the first time was a shock for everyone in Karazhan. It was unbelievable that such an unworldly island still retained a prehistoric ecological environment. The roaring Fengshen pterosaurs, the rumbling of a herd of long-necked diplodocus running past, and many slender-jawed dragons chasing their prey. "Will there be Tyrannosaurus?" Laura asked, just as a loud roar echoed. Roar. Deafening. Duke hastily shifted the direction of the portal. By the sea, a Tyrannosaurus Rex was tearing apart an emperor crocodile that didn't know its place. The scene was once bloody. "Emperor crocodile, is this from the Cretaceous period?" Logan asked. "As expected of a history professor," Duke chuckled. "You don't care about the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex is still from the Cretaceous period. Let's go, let's go." Duke walked in first, and then activated the shield. The dark sea in the center of the earth is still very dangerous. These dinosaurs pose a significant threat to Logan and the others. I wonder what would happen if Logan were eaten by a Tyrannosaurus Rex? He'd probably resurrect inside its stomach and then burst out, right? Finally, he'd use his sharp claws to tear apart the body and climb out. Those who came on this Jurassic journey included Duke, Diana, and Mara's family, apprentices Samir, Leanne, and Jay, Ennifer, 3 members of Uncle Wolf's family, Logan, Silver Fox Kara, and their daughter Laura, brother Tiger Victor, Captain America, Peggy Carter and his wife, Doubtson Carlos, Professor Erskine, Bucky, and Domino. Notably, Howard wasn't on the list. "Why me? Why, woo woo woo," Howard cried, standing outside the portal. He couldn't leave Karazhan. He would die if he did. Unlike Leon, whose soul body is extremely solid and can leave Karazhan, Howard isn't a magician. He can only condense his soul and body to interact with the physical world, but leaving Karazhan is impossible for him. He could only cry. Yan Lingji stayed in Karazhan to look after the house. "Ha! Old man, just stay inside and look after the house. Who told you not to practice?" Professor Erskine teased as they parted. Ignoring Howard's wailing, Duke closed the portal. "Hurry up, take out all the things. I want a barbecue in Jurassic. I like braised chicken wings, but your mother said that you will ascend to heaven soon, and the sooner you ascend to heaven, the more you will eat desperately. If you don't eat now, you will have no chance to eat again," Duke sang in Chinese. The others didn't understand the words, but were happy to hear them. Only Diana and Duchenne understood, and Diana even punched Duke playfully. "What nonsense are you talking about?" she scolded. "Hey, ingredients, ingredients," Victor said, taking out the space package and pulling out a large freezer and food box. The freezer was full of high-quality beef and mutton, as well as some crocodile meat, turkey meat, kangaroo meat, and more. The refrigeration unit was modified to rely on Duke to generate electricity to maintain power. Inside the refrigerator were various beverages, including Laoshan Coke. Born in 1953, Laoshan Coke has been popular in China for decades due to its unique formula and taste. Made with traditional Chinese medicine ingredients like black dates, cloves, ginger, angelica, and amomum, it has a unique taste that refreshes you all summer after chilling. This Chinese medicine cola can also invigorate the spleen, warm the stomach, dispel cold and dampness, and relieve pain. Its sweetness is suitable for all ages. Laoshan Coke, remember to pay. This time, they only brought ingredients and no tools for the vacation because Duke could create them out of thin air. Why waste so much effort? As for the residential area, they chose the water curtain cave where Atlanta rested. Soon, the chicken wings on the grill began to sizzle, and the aroma wafted across the island. End of this chapter.